Hi, so I want to talk about the first person that I was granted time to speak with in Honolulu about Ho'oponopono. I spoke with a woman named Pomoai Ikai. That's how you say your name. Anyway, right at the beginning, that's the first thing I asked her to say because I don't speak Hawaiian. But her native inland name, Renee, or Poe, as I came to know her by, does a form of a Hawaiian lomi massage. It's one of the things that she does. She has a company called Aloha Hawaiian Blessings, where she does weddings, wedding blessing ceremonies. She does Ho'oponopono classes and things of that nature, and she's won some accolades for that. And she's a bright woman who has a real spirit for helping people, and that comes across here. So if you'll overlook some of our waves and the crashing ocean in the background, and just kind of receive in the information that she has to share with us about Ho'oponopono, I'm sure she's going to pique your interest moving forward. But stay tuned, because after this, there's even more to enjoy. All right, that was an amazing interview, and I'd like to thank Poe for that opportunity. A little bit later, it's funny, I barely was able to capture that interview with her. As my flight was coming in, she was moving out of where she was going, and so we had a lucky set of circumstances that put us at precisely the same place at the same time, of all places. And so it came out a lot better than I could have expected. Hi, so I'm here in Honolulu, and I'm speaking to, pronounce your name again?
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. See, I keep having her say that because it is not my native language. And so what Ho'oponopono does is she works with people with Ho'oponopono to help clear blockages and that they have with the past, within themselves, and with other people. And so I want to find out more about how you use this to help people become more successful, maybe if they have blocks in their businesses, if they have blocks in projects or hobbies, things that they're pursuing in life, or anything like that. What is maybe a case that you can tell us about?
Okay, so many cases. I have to think about that. Ho'oponopono is used in so many different ways. I use it for clients that come to me that want to clear things that are bothering them, whether it might be relationships that have caused them some negativity from the past, from experiences. I also conduct Ho'oponopono during weddings. And during the wedding ceremony, we're really looking to release aqua cords, or energetic connections from past relationships. So the husband or the partners are connected to each other exclusively.
Awesome. So you mentioned something called aqua cords. Is that aqua cords?
Yeah, A-K-A, aqua cords. Yeah.
And so what are aqua cords, and how do they affect us? And how, through the manipulation of the aqua cords, can we become clear, lighter beings?
Oh, good question. So the aqua cords are these invisible, energetic connections that connect us to every living thing on the planet.
Okay.
Even stones and plants and the sun and the moon and the elementals. So we are all connected by these energetic connections. And these aqua cords are very intelligent. We receive information through them. I call it the coconut wireless because it's amazing when somebody calls me on the phone and my phone is out of eyesight. Many times I'll already know who it is that's calling me, and that's because I'm tuning into this energetic connection that we've already formed prior to that phone call. So the aqua cords are amazing, and when we release them during Ho'oponopono, we're only addressing the negative connections that may reside between individuals or experiences, and this allows us to have new, clear perspectives and release any heaviness that we may be holding in our hearts with a lot of forgiveness.
Wow. So how does the clearing of the octave chords and the utilization of Ho'oponopono, how do they compare and contrast?
Well, they work together. So, for instance, during Ho'oponopono, I will say the universal prayer, and I'll either use my hand or a tea leaf and my ha, or my breath of life, to release the aqua chords that may have connected to me through other experiences or people throughout my day or throughout my week. And these aqua chords connect over our energetic centers. So on the top of the head, the eyes, the mouth, the throat, the heart, the opu or the stomach, the hips, and the knees.
Do you do this clearing of the octave chords before you do a Ho'oponopono, or is this the Ho'oponopono itself?
This is part of the Ho'oponopono, is to release these aqua chords.
Okay.
Yeah. And it can be done without tea leaf. So if there are those of you that don't have tea leaf, you can certainly just use your hand and your intention to release these aqua chords.
So it's by making or having the intention to clear and break the negative octave chord in conjunction with the breath exhalation in order to, and the motion cutting, to really get the full tactile stimulation, the mental and spiritual aspects working together to really break the connection?
Yes, and when we release the aqua chords, also whether it be with your hand or with a tea leaf, we really use this cutting motion. It's not a it's not like this, you know.
Not lazily.
It's not lazily. It's with an intention to release these, and again, we're doing it with love and forgiveness, so that we can move forward in our lives without any heaviness that we may be holding on to.
You said something to me earlier about not being able to do or not choosing to use Ho'oponopono on somebody unless they explicitly request it.
Yes, so I have many people call me and they request Ho'oponopono for themselves, but then also for their spouse. And oftentimes I'll have couples call me, but it'll just be one of the couple, or one of them, and they will tell me that their partner wants Ho'oponopono, and they really feel their partner needs Ho'oponopono. But I'll delve a bit deeper and ask, did your partner ask for this Ho'oponopono? No, they just, I know my partner needs this. So in this situation, I will ask them to speak to their partner and say, you know, when your partner is ready, then come to me and ask me for the Ho'oponopono, and it will be done. It needs to be requested specifically. That way, we know that the person that's receiving it really wants it and is really ready for it.
Nice. So, what's the process? What's the order of action when you are practicing Ho'oponopono? How long does it usually take? When did the octave chord cutting, where does that part come in? What's the prayer, and how do you feel? How do you know that you're processing this and completing?
Okay. I would imagine that it's more of a feeling that comes over when you know that it is complete. Ho'oponopono is a universal prayer that is said to release these aqua chords. So anybody can say it. It's the intention. So you would state your name. I state your name, wish to do a Ho'oponopono for, and then you state that person's name or that person's address. We wish to release any aqua chords or connections of imbalance or negativity from the beginning of creation until the present time. And we ask that they be released with great love and forgiveness to God's light. At that point, you can use your hand or a tea leaf to release these aqua chords. And also in Hawaii, we use our ha, which is the breath of life. And this is kind of the energy or the power behind it. It's the chi, the engine behind it. So when we breathe the ha, we're bringing it down from God and exhaling through our mouth the life force. So of course we use our ha at the same time as fuel to release these aqua chords.
All right, cool. I'm glad you broke that down for me. What I want to know is, a lot of people have heard of Dr. Hugh Len's methodology with self-identity, Ho'oponopono, and the whole prayer of I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Do you use a form of that, or is it as a different tactic or method altogether?
I love that, and I use that in my own life specifically all the time, and I find that it helps me a lot. However, the type of Ho'oponopono that I'm using, it I think expands on that to where I personally use Ho'oponopono on a daily basis. So whatever encounters that I may have throughout my day, I will be able to individually release them so that I can move forward as well.
What would you say to somebody who's wanting to learn how to practice it in their own life, maybe the way you do?
Well, I would say to definitely check my website for classes, HawaiianAlohaBlessings.com.
Which you teach right here in Honolulu.
Yes, I do. We just finished up a class, which is wonderful, and it includes meditation and releasing the alpha chords and learning how to chant and things like that. So you can specifically learn it through me if you want to travel to Honolulu.
Excellent, excellent. I'm gonna edit this part out. The breathing in. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is actually focusing in directly on who's speaking, and you can see.
Perfect.
So it's kicking out the water.
Oh,
It's kicking out that, and it's focusing in this.
amazing. Okay.
It's good.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So if I wanted to, read up more about the subject, where are some places that you started learning? Were you mentored into it?
I was mentored into it, and I'm working on my own work as well. A lot of it's on my website. However, I feel very driven personally to get Ho'oponopono to the whole world and to spread it, because I feel it's the easiest way that I have been introduced to release things that no longer serve a purpose very easily and quickly and repeatedly at any time. As far as reading about it, it's difficult to find things right now. Dr. Human definitely is at the forefront of that. So currently we're working on getting more material out there that's actually in the written form.
How do you think Ho'oponopono relates to people of different denominations? There's people that are Christian or Buddhist, and they may not be of Hawaiian descent, but maybe they want to find a way to integrate it into their lives. How can that work across denominations?
Absolutely, and that's why I love it so much, and that's why it's such a big part of my life, because I find that it meets people exactly where they are. It doesn't matter what gender you are, what race you are, what shape you are, what spiritual, religious belief system you were raised with. It meets the person right there, right where they are, without any judgment. And it can be definitely blended with any belief system.
Really good to know. There's a lot of people that are searching, and they're coming from all different places in life, and I know I myself, as a searcher, am looking for alternatives than what I have on my plate, because I want to increase the speed of my spiritual development.
Yes.
Would you be opposed to demonstrating, maybe a mini demonstration of Ho'oponopono right now, or maybe your process?
Yeah, that's a bit sacred. I don't think we can do that on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So tell me about the sacredness of the Ho'oponopono, because I understand that people who practice it, if they are not in the right frame of mind, it can do damage to an individual.
Yes.
So what kind of training or development should a person have before they start to do it themselves?
Do it themselves or for others?
For themselves or others. For instance, in Zero Limits, we're given the procedure and we're encouraged to implement it in our lives. But traditionally, like how you treat it, there isn't a real commercial format. There isn't a real, step by step.
Right, right.
So are you, would you say if somebody, let's say somebody's stuck in Kansas, they can't get out of their town in Kansas, they can't even come to Hawaii, how can you help them with this information? Is there something you can offer them?
Well, I'm hoping that this DVD will get to them.
Yeah.
And that'll be the first step, So that is what I'm working on. That is my goal, is to get this information more out to the public, and that means that it needs to go into formats like this and into the written form as well. So currently there's not a lot out there, and that's why I'm here talking to you today, is to make sure that everybody out there hears about it.
It might be a good idea to start a training DVD set or something.
Yes.
Maybe something where you can explain, because you can't do it in a single talk like this, explain everything that's got to be explained.
Right.
I can appreciate that.
Ho'oponopono, I have to say, is the easiest, most accessible tool that I have found to release things that don't serve a purpose. And so in order to do this, I think really the formula is to be pono. And pono means spiritual integrity. So that means doing what you say you will do. It's being honest and trustworthy always.
And everything you do in life.
Yes, yes. The first step would be to be pono. But then when you couple that with mana is life force or power, the chi energy, then that's very powerful. When you have mana and pono together. Many people can have mana, but not be pono. Many people can be pono, but not have mana. But when you put the two together, it's very powerful. So this is what I feel is necessary to conduct Ho'oponopono, certainly for others, is to have this mana and to have the pono as well. How do we get mana? How do we get it? By keeping our conduit, our body as a conduit clean and pure. This can happen through thoughts, through what we put into our body, through our diet, what we put onto our body, cosmetics, emotions, in keeping the vibration high. Always keeping the vibration high. When you keep the vibration high, then you're able to address lower vibration energy.
So when did you get into this? At what age, and how did you come upon it?
I was introduced to this as a Lomi massage therapist, and I was always a spiritual seeker. And I got introduced to it in kind of a roundabout way, where I met my kumu, or my mentor, who was teaching Lomi, or Hawaiian massage. But this particular style of Lomi was more spiritual, and it included Ho'oponopono. And after meeting me, she recognized in me right away that I wanted to do the work. And that willingness, along with my time and energy and focus, and going with her to many events, is how I became trained as a kahu today.
Wow. So the kahu. Kahu. And what does the kahu mean? What is that word? How would you break it down for?
Assistant. I'm here to serve, to assist others in their path. The definition could be termed as a Hawaiian minister or priestess, but I, in a humble way, I just say I'm here to serve and to assist.
That's totally
And to guide.
That's great. Well, I thank you for your time. And I know you got a lot of things going on. You just did a wedding blessing ceremony.
Yes,
and,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, and so if you come to Hawaii to get married, that is something you're definitely going to want to maybe incorporate into the ceremony, is that blessing, and get those aka cords cut, the negative ones, and get some Ho'oponopono working in your life.
Yes, for sure. I can do that for you.
Great. Well, thanks for your time, Po.
Mahalo, Robert.
Later on, I talked to a man named Ramsey. Ramsey is an amazing gentleman. He's very accomplished academically. His social and I suppose you might say political involvement in the Hawaiian system of the tradition of the spirit of Hawaii as it pertains to keeping the ancient traditions alive for the peoples and for all of Hawaii are pretty remarkable. He is currently the CEO and president of Lay of the Pacific, and that's LAY EI of the Pacific, unless it's LIE. Well, that would be lie. So that's a lie. So it is LEI. The address and all of his contact information with everybody that we're talking to today will be displayed at the end. Anyway, so when you talk to this man, you're going to know, you're going to notice that he's very calm, he's very sensible, he's very peaceful, he's very educated, and he's very able to articulate himself in a way that helps us understand what could be complicated about Ho'oponopono. And this is probably one of the more revealing interviews that we did as far as procedure goes, in particular relative to the thought process of Ho'oponopono and your perspective on life. And later on, we have a wonderful interview with a man named Mark. But until we get to that, I want you to take a relaxing position and take in this wonderful interview with Ramsey Toon.
All right, we're here in Honolulu, and I'm talking to Ramsey here. What's your, do you have a Hawaiian name? Is that the name you go by?
Actually, my name is Ramsey Remedios Mahelani Tom.
Wow, I'm glad I asked
My
you.
students call me Kumu, so you can call me Kumu Ramsey or
Kumu Ramsey.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And I understand that you were, you studied with Dr. Hugh Len at one point.
Actually, I studied with Auntie Morna Nalamaku Simeona, who was the founder of the system of Ho'oponopono, self-identity through Ho'oponopono. And Dr. Hugh Len was the administrator of the Foundation of I, and I was one of the instructors and as well as a member of the foundation at the time of Auntie Morna's transition in 1992. And so I've continued to teach the class or facilitate the classes with a small group of us who are all selected and trained by Auntie Morna to continue teaching the class or this training called Ho'oponopono as she updated it for contemporary use.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel, based on what you've understood about, with Zero Limits coming out, there's been a renewed interest in Ho'oponopono. Do you feel like the interest in it is reflecting the traditional nature of Ho'oponopono, or do you think that there's been maybe some distortion which kind of pulls it away from the original power that you grew up on?
Well, there's a concept about how fruit falls far from the tree sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to be careful because I have not read Zero Limits.
Mm-hmm.
But what I know of Zero Limits is because of students or those that have read the book who have contacted or called me or have come to our classes here in Honolulu. And basically that's all I know about what Zero Limits is talking about. So I really can't
Mm-hmm.
comment on the book.
Sure.
But what I've heard and what people are asking me about is, or seem to be very interested in, is one story in particular about healing in absentia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where Dr. Hewlin speaks about being able to calm a ward of inmates. Others talk about the mantras of saying particular things. I'm sorry, I love you. That so you have to tell me more about it than I can tell you about.
That's basically the gist. I think that's the main thing that differentiates that Ho'oponopono, the way they teach it, from other forms that I've been seeing, is mostly that mantra. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. And it's through taking on the responsibility of the patient or whoever you're trying to heal, and then saying, look, they're in front of me, and because they're in front of me, that means I'm attracting to me some element of their condition, and it couldn't be in front of me unless I had some part to play in it. And so by taking accountability for that, on the basis of that, they can begin to cleanse themselves as a means of cleansing them.
Okay.
So that's that way. How do you usually confront a patient or a client when trying to cleanse them? Do you Do you work on a specific ailment first? Do you cleanse the whole being, or do you have some intuitive method?
Well, those are good questions. I think what's important to is probably start at the beginning, right? And that Ho'oponopono, a word, Ho'oponopono basically is defined as to make right. And some people have defined it as conflict resolution or problem solving. And that's again applying a Western context or Western lens to a cultural practice. And in the Western world, we tend to look for singularities to describe all things with one word, right? Well, Ho'oponopono, like any other Hawaiian word, has multiple meanings, much deeper than the typical singularity, single meaning that we might apply to something. So Ho'oponopono is really about making things right, not necessarily fixing things. Something may get fixed when you create a right condition, right? So for instance, if we were gathered to do a conflict resolution or to solve a problem, this was our gathering here, what would we have to start with when we brought everyone into this room to the conflict resolution or the problem solving gathering? What would we bring into the room with us? What would we start with?
Probably the common denominator,
Which is?
we all have a problem.
Okay. And if it was a conflict resolution, we would start with?
The individuals who have the issue with each other.
Okay. You'd be starting with the conflict.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
So in other words, if it's problem solving and conflict resolution, you actually bring the elephant in the room and spend the rest of the day trying to get him out. Right? Ho'oponopono is less about trying to fix the elephant than it is about creating a proper condition. Okay? So when we do Ho'oponopono, as it was taught by Auntie Morna, Nalamaku Simeona, the concept is, I'm not trying to heal you at all. Ho'oponopono isn't something you do to people. I don't do Ho'oponopono on somebody. Okay, I'm not the Ho'oponopono guy, and I'm gonna Ho'oponopono you, right? Ho'oponopono is, in the title, self-identity. So it's a self process that is triggered and used when you begin to acknowledge and recognize that when you're faced with a dis-ease, a disorder, a stress of some kind, that dis-ease, disorder, or distress is actually in you as much as it is outside of you. So the process is really one that goes in and begins to ask this simple question. Say it with me, okay? What is it about me
What is it about me
that allows me
that allows me
to see in you
to see in you
what bugs me
what bugs me
about you?
about you?
You hear that?
Yeah.
What is it about me that allows me to see in you, in this space, what is it about me that's allowing me to be triggered by any of this around me in a way that bothers me, that upsets me, that gets me sick, that causes all these things? Because the guy sitting next to me isn't bothered by this at all. Have you ever had that experience?
Yes.
Where you've been in a room where you're the only one that's triggered or someone else is being triggered, and then we spend the rest of the time trying to convince everybody else of the problem we all share.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Ho'oponopono is really saying, which is kind of what you touched on earlier, is that when someone reveals to you that they're ill or sick or having a problem, it's not my responsibility to fix them. What happens then is I'm saying thank you to this person for revealing in me this seed, right, that says there's something about me that you're now allowing me to see from this experience that I can now cleanse with. So the cleansing is an internal cleansing. It's not a cleansing of things around you. Okay? And so that's where one of the deviations comes in.
Okay.
Is that a lot of people have come to think that, and this is ego, right? I don't want to get to all the psychological thinking or terminology, but the concept is a lot of people are intrigued by the process because of what they can do to others. When really the whole Ho'oponopono process is, how do I cleanse myself? Because when I become clean and I've eliminated or transmuted the memories that are within me, then you're free to move on. You want to be nuts? Go be nuts someplace else, because you don't have to be nuts by me anymore, right? So it's the question is, what is it about me that continues to be attracted to these kinds of issues and them to me? When I can remove that inside of me, they can go do whatever they want. In other words, I'm getting out of their way. So when a patient comes up to you, or if you find yourself surrounded by patients of a particular disorder, dis-ease, or distress, it's rather arrogant to think that I'm the best guy to heal these people. Okay, that becomes an ego thing. Rather than saying, what is it about me that if I remove, I no longer see this? See, those people may be healed simply because I'm no longer projecting upon them my own illnesses, diseases, and disorders, my distress. So it's not so much that I've healed them, but I am no longer a source of irritation or trigger for them to begin to display the behaviors that they do. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, there's something about me that's triggering you, that's triggering me. What is it about me that bugs me about you? Rather than what is it about you that bugs me?
So, in order to be bothered by somebody to begin with, you have a seed of their condition already inside of you.
Correct.
And in order to purge them or this circumstance, your relationship with this person, you need to cleanse that self-perception that is holding them into your life. So if you've got angry people in your life and the angry people everywhere, well, where is the anger in me that I need to get rid of so that all these angry people can feel free to go and be angry elsewhere?
Be angry somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, they may no longer be angry because their anger in this moment at this time is here in front of me so that I can deal with my anger. And the minute I deal with my anger and I let that go, and I can forgive myself and all others that have contributed to this anger, then you no longer have to be angry because we've resolved that issue, right? Somehow I've resolved it within me. And so when I'm asking for forgiveness, it's less forgiveness from you as much as it is forgiveness for myself, right? And the multiple selves that make me who I am, which is a foundation of peace in the whole Ho'oponopono process, according to the way I keep Morna.
See, it sounds to me like we are, it's like the what you resist persists sort of thing. And it's persisting because of the inward resistance. And when we cease to resist, then the guard can come down oftentimes for other people in order so that they can drop the drama themselves. But sometimes it's just they leave, and sometimes they drop the drama and you become a source of healing.
Right. I mean, one of the things when the secret came out, I'd like to say that the Ho'oponopono has been the secret, right? It has been a secret for a very long time, but it is not a secret that you're keeping from people, right? There's secrets that you withhold, and there are things you just don't know that you perceive to be a secret, right? The Kahuna in Hawaii knew things for a very long time. They didn't tell anyone else. Therefore, someone said, you're keeping a secret. Well, I'll tell it to you. Once you know it, it's no longer a secret. So it's similarly, this concept of a secret, right, is that you're keeping this information. Well, interesting enough, the secrets that we keep are the memories that we have. Sometimes we don't even know they're there.
That's profound.
They're even a secret to ourselves.
You should repeat that. The secrets that we keep are the memories that we have.
Only you have them. You have your memories. They're your secrets. They're even secret to you. Until someone comes up and reveals the secret to you. Right? So they become, the student becomes teacher. The concept of when the student is ready, the teacher appears. The other way around. When the teacher is ready, the student appears. So oftentimes we believe that because I'm standing in front of the classroom and I'm facilitating the class that I'm the teacher. In Ho'oponopono, it's completely the other way around. When you show up, you're teaching me what I need to learn as the facilitator, because you're revealing to me the secrets within me that I didn't even know.
You know, that's interesting that you put it that way, because you know, I've seen life is just a school, and I walk around, and if I see somebody and I think they've got a bad attitude, then I know that I have a bad attitude about something, because as soon as I feel good in that area of my life, as soon as I'm not actually putting out a bad attitude, I cease to see that in them. And they may still have the attitude, but I don't have the subjective targeting their attitude, and it just goes right over my head, and it doesn't even faze me. And if somebody seems to be taking advantage of things and it's getting under my skin, it's like, where am I taking advantage of things in my life?
That's right.
That it's causing an offense to me, because everything that we do to others, everything we judge others of, we're guilty of ourselves. Actually, it says that in the book of Romans. It states that you judge people for this or for that sin, but don't you know that you're guilty of it yourself? And I remember reading that one night and thinking about it long and hard, and I'm like, if I take that to the extreme, just pertaining to anything, does that mean that anything that I would judge somebody for, I've already either done it or have thought to do it, or before you know it, or gonna do it?
Well, consider this along those lines, because there are certain truths that I think all people eventually become aware of through different levels of teaching. It could be an animal teaching it to you, it could be the trees teaching it to you, or it could be a book teaching it to you, right? It's just that when we get to a point where we are prepared to learn the lesson, it's provided to us. Okay, so when you're talking about the Romans, Antimorna used to say it, and it comes from these books as well. When you see the splinter in someone else's eye, remove the log from your own.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you can't see in others their failures or their faults unless a part of that is already within you in order for you to begin to acknowledge it.
Takes one to know one.
And precisely. Because if you've never experienced it, how do you define it? You come across something brand new, you don't know what to call it, you don't acknowledge it, so things go by us constantly. But we talk about it all the time. You buy a brand new car, all of a sudden everyone else has the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our daughter becomes a 7th grader, every 7th grader becomes very clear to you. Yesterday they were 6th graders. You had no idea they were 7th graders, right? Your world is a product of your focus, whatever you're focused on, and whatever your aperture is set to, that's what's going to fall inside your lens. Ho'oponopono is about clearing the lens, right? So once you establish a new lens, you begin to see things that the guy next to you will never see until it's their turn to see it. And it doesn't mean it's good, bad, or indifferent. It means that's what's appropriate. And that's what the word pono means. See, ho'oponopono, ho'o means to combine, to do, to act. The word pono is drippingly good. Everything that is proper, appropriate, right, correct. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's like, how can anybody be so good? Right? So in other words, pono is an aspiration. It's a condition that you're always trying to move to. It's not permanent. It's like these shells on my leg. Each one of these is a pono moment. What you're trying to do is string as many pono moments together. There will be gaps, but your focus isn't on the gaps. Your focus is on the moments. So Ho'oponopono is about how do I live in the moment in a pono way as often as possible. It's moment by moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you break the word down, Ho'oponopono, pono is all this appropriate stuff that's good. That's an overall condition. Then the next word is ponopono. Ponopono is, example, the kitchen drawer? You pull it out and there's a tray. And in that tray is a spoon, a fork, a knife. It's the frame, right? The form. That's the measurement. That allows us to measure whether things are in the right order. That's ponopono. Okay? So if I put the spoon in the spoon, the fork in the fork, the knife in the knife, the drawer is now ponopono. I close the drawer, everything is pono. Got it? So pono is a larger condition. Pono is the way I measure that. So I look at it, the chair is where it's supposed to be, the table where it is, the pillow, everything is pono. Ah, everything's pono. See that?
Yeah.
Pono, measured. The next part of the word is ho'opono. Ho'opono is when you do things correctly. We just had a party. We're washing the dishes any way you want, manually or automatically. You take the spoons and you put the spoon in the spoon. Put the forks in the fork and the knife. That's proper behavior. So the word ho'opono is to do things correctly the first time. So when I put the spoons in the spoons, the forks in the forks, you can look at the drawer and say, oh, everything is pono, because it's all in the right place. Therefore, everything is pono. Got it? So pono is the condition, pono is the way you measure it, ho'opono is the way you behave in order for things to be pono. Got it?
Yes, okay.
Now, you open the drawer, the knife is in the fork is in the spoon is in the knife. That drawer is now a'ole pono. A'ole is the absence of pono, or pono ole. It's incorrect. Something's wrong. Something's inappropriate. Something's improper. So when I see something as a'ole pono or pono ole, we would ho'oponopono. Make it right. So how do you make it right? You put the spoon in the spoon, the fork in the fork, the knife in the knife. Now what you have is pono. Right? So here's a condition pono. Pono measures it. Ho'opono makes it that way. And in the absence of all that, you put things right. As a result of putting things right, I may have fixed the problem, but my intention wasn't to fix. My intention was to put right. See the focus? Very different. If I start out calling it a conflict, if I start out calling it a problem, I start thinking about the problem, which means I'm attracting that to me.
I see. So
rather than thinking about the preferred condition. Ho'oponopono is about focusing on preferred conditions, not fixing bad ones.
So it's more about bringing things to a more idealized state instead of trying to attain a specific perfection, so that you're not content if it's not perfect. Instead, it's ideal. It's where it's made right, where it needs to be. It's appropriate, but your intention isn't that it needs to be this way. It's appropriate, and so it is already.
Because the concept of pono is all things are where they're supposed to be, because that's where they're supposed to be. You're here right now because it's pono. I'm here, we're all here right now, it's pono. I called you today, you got off the plane, I looked at the phone, I said, I need to call, I called, you just got off the plane. That's pono. It was the way it's supposed to be, alright? So one of the concepts of mantra is the antimana, if you call it a mantra, is basically a focus, which says, to be in the right place for my good and for the good of others. That's pono. Now, that may mean that I could be experiencing discomfort in order for you to feel comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, so it's not what I want as much as it is what needs to be. And that's very difficult for people to understand.
How would you reconcile that for somebody who feels that there shouldn't be any conflict? Everything should feel right for everybody involved. How would you justify that if somebody said, well, it's not really the law of attraction if everybody isn't benefiting equally? One of the definitions, or one of the ways I've been able to define the law of attraction is a real moment of synchronicity where the law of attraction is working. Is a moment, it's not, I am trying to attract sunglasses, so I go and steal your sunglasses, now I've attracted sunglasses, but it's, you have sunglasses and I have this awesome postcard that you desire, and incidentally I have this, you have that, and we meet up, and then we exchange them, and then that's the law of attraction, because it works for both of our good, and not just for one of our good.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, I believe that even the law of attraction has been taken out of context, because it's still focused on what I want. We're using a natural law or a concept or truth for our satisfaction. The reality is there are multiple truths. Right now, when you just came from another part of the world, you left there at 12 in the afternoon. You got here the same day, several hours later. It's 4 o'clock here, it's 12 o'clock there. Whose truth is true? They're living at 12, I'm living at 4. It's true, it's 4, but they're going to say you're lying because it's 12. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are multiple truths. My truth as an attraction may not be your truth as an attraction. Right? So do you have to give up your truth in order for this to be pono? Oftentimes things appear to be disparate. Sometimes they appear to be in conflict. But those two things in conflict are what creates balance. Okay? It's when we're trying to control balance for our good and for the good of others, when someone else is defining good in a completely different way, that's when we have conflict. Well, this should be good because it's the sun, and this is the, well, where there's a moon, there's a sun. Where there's light, there's dark. Right? The law of attraction doesn't say eliminate one in order to have the other. The law of attraction says you're going to attract to you what you focus on. There are consequences to that. Right? So when you say, I want what everyone else wants, I want what's good for you in order for me to have, I may not get everything I want if there's going to be balance. Right? So the law of attraction is one of multiple laws that are all applying when you're in the right state of mind. For instance, flies get attracted to things that you and I probably wouldn't be attracted to. Is that correct? Sure. Many of us are attracted to the frosting that we put on the cake. So if I put frosting on something that flies want, you're attracted to frosting, the flies are attracted to what's under the frosting. Everyone's happy. Right? What I think is happening is that a lot of the stuff that's going on spiritually and metaphysically today, it's the frosting. Many of us are being attracted to the frosting, and we really don't know the substance. And in some respects, that's what's happening with, I think, the effect that Zero Limits is having with some people, because they haven't got to the substance, they're focusing on the frosting. It's not bad, it's just not pono.
There's a prosperity mindedness going on nowadays,
Sure.
where people want to use the law of attraction technology to attract goods and things that they desire instead of necessarily what's best for them
That's correct.
or what is going to sustain them long term.
Here's an example from my own experience. Several years ago, I was surveying a wall, and the wall started crumbling under me. So I tried to jump off the wall to protect myself from falling on the debris, and in the process, tore the ligaments in my knee, and for all intents and purposes, broke my knee. And as soon as I stood up, I knew what had happened to my knee, and I acknowledged that that was pono. So you may ask, well, why was that pono? Because in that moment, it was very clear that I was moving at a pace. I was in a space of mind and experience that was probably moving too quickly. And the ancestors, the kupuna, the space, the energy said, slow down. So by my knee being injured, metaphysically or metaphorically was take a knee. Slow down for a second. Because you're headed in a place that's going to be dangerous for you and for others. I'm not going to define what the danger is, but sometimes things happen to us in order to put us back on track. So while the knee was a'ole pono, it wasn't right, it hurt. It was pono because at that moment it set things in the right motion.
Mm-hmm.
So someone will say that's contradiction. But if you don't have clarity of mind, you're going to say that was a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
But at that moment I said to say thank you, because at that moment I got taken off the path that I was on and put on a different path. See, so for my good and for the good of others, I needed to damage my knee. And since I couldn't do it myself, the cosmos helped me. The kupuna helped me.
That's interesting. You know,
See?
a lot of people have a hard time identifying with something like that. But you know, I can share the sentiment in so many ways. If I'm rushing around, or if I'm very left-brained about something and pressing, I might hit my elbow, but that is the you know, the due reward for the behavior. That's like a block, like you're saying, to slow down.
Right.
And you know, if you want to avoid these things, it requires a balanced mind. And if something is happening to you harm, I mean, you're lucky you're not dying. It's more of it's like a bumper car hitting the road.
Yeah.
To stay on the path.
Call it what you want. God, cosmos, creator, but he, she, it is kind when it does that to you. That was a kind reminder. Because I could have completely lost the leg. Or I could have lost my life. Or I could have caused the loss of someone else's life. I don't know what it was, but at the moment, I could have just really said, oh, wow, this is a bummer. I've been extremely angry at the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I could have blamed somebody else. We like to do that. Why me? Well, who else would it be? Would you want this on somebody else? No, obviously not. I wouldn't want somebody else's knee to be broken. But at that moment, that was right for me and the world around me. But you have to have that level of clarity to get to that point and not blame others or even yourself for that matter. So a lot of people have difficulty with Ho'oponopono because they also think, well, I didn't want to do this. Well, sure you did. That's why you did it. But not from the standpoint that you're blaming yourself. You know, I can't, well, it's not about blame, it's about responsibility. What you talked about earlier, right? Well, what's really important though, I think that probably those who are interested in this particular brand of Ho'oponopono is the concept of memory, those secrets I told you about. The secrets in us are what's attracting things to us in order for us to get rid of the secrets, to let it go. So when something comes into my life, a person, a condition, an experience, a smell, a sound, a sight, we're sensual beings, and as sensual beings, our senses trigger these memories. And when those memories are triggered, that's the opportunity to release that memory, which is really the process of cleansing, so that when I experience it again, it won't bother me, right? So imagine if I came into the room with a memory. When I was 2 years old, there was a gentleman who wore green shorts who stepped on my toe. And I never got rid of that memory. My toe was bothering me ever since. And every time I see someone in a green pair of shorts, my toe bothers me. And I get really irritated. You and I would have had a very different experience downstairs, right? Oh, there's that guy who stepped on my toe again. And unfortunately, it has nothing to do with your identity, his identity, it has to do with my memory. And so what happens, I begin to hold everyone who wears a green pair of shorts responsible for what happened to my toe. So what happens is, the guy in the blue shorts can stand next to me, but not the guy in the green shorts. It has nothing to do with them, it has to do with my memory. And every other dis-ease, disorder, or stress is tied to that memory. Because if you don't have that memory, it can't trigger you. If you didn't ever have the memory of green shorts, you wouldn't recognize it when you saw it. You'd say, oh, that's new. But you wouldn't have a reaction or response to it. So every reaction we have, good, bad, or indifferent, is tied to a memory of good, bad, or indifferent. Right? So if it's bothering me, I begin to cleanse with the memory. So the Ho'oponopono process is, please forgive me for whatever I have done to you, your ancestors, or to anyone else that has created a condition that you and I have to sit in this room tonight to even have this conversation. And please forgive me for anything that I've done to people in green shorts from the time I was created, from the time that I was a thought or I was a speck of sand on the shores of the planet Earth. It goes that far back. We are the continuum of all things. At any moment in time, I am the continuation, the culmination of all my thoughts, my memories, my experiences, my aspirations, my fears, my anxieties, your anxieties, her anxieties, my parents' anxieties. That's who I am at this moment. We are all those things. Some of it is consciously acknowledged. Most of it's subconsciously present, unacknowledged. And that's what triggers us. And so the Ho'oponopono process is about how do I get to those memories and cleansing them. That's the cleansing process. Transmuting them into a new energy, into a new thought, and releasing it. Because if you subscribe to energy at all, we know that energy doesn't disappear. It becomes something else.
Mm-hmm.
So Ho'oponopono is a process of finding that memory that is creating the condition that is Ho'oponopono.
Mm-hmm.
Erasing that memory. And we don't do that. We do that with the assistance of divinity, the divine, right? That thing is larger than us, that we're all a part of. And so when I can let go of that memory, then the other part of this of the process is, please forgive me as I forgive you. Your ancestors and my ancestors. Because the reason we're in this room together is because your great-grandfather 10 times removed may have done injury to my great-grandfather 10 times removed. And we are the representatives of that lineage. And today we can apologize. We can free them from whatever they've done. Because it is them that has brought us to this room.
That's a good point. Even biblically, the sins of the parents go down
That's
to
correct.
generations and generations. And I think a lot of what you're saying is we can expedite healing if we're not going to wait until we're re-stimulated and then transmute that re-stimulation into something good for future reference. Then we can actually start exploring ourselves consciously in a state of reverie in order to excavate out issues in us that we didn't know were there, to prevent them from rearing their head at us at an unfortunate time, and then as a result heal any illnesses or maladies that we're suffering from presently from that, and maybe we weren't even conscious of.
Exactly. And more importantly, we begin to train that memory into others. Right? There are cultures that continue to kill one another 2,000 years later. They're passing on the memory. Right? There's a DNA that's going on in that. So when I can remove that memory, it has nothing to do with your ethnicity, it has nothing to do with your culture, your age, your height, your gender, your preferences. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with my memory. And whatever it is about you, them, it, that's triggering me to respond or react the way I do, at the end of the day, it comes down to my memory. So we go full circle. When you start talking about what people are saying or what they're learning in the reading of this book, Zero Limits, there are limits. And those limits are what we bring to the table. I call it supply side thought. Right? Whatever thoughts you're supplied with, that's what you're limited to. Right? When you go beyond those limits, now you're beginning to talk, because you're no longer holding yourself back to the thoughts that you brought in the room. There may be 100 of us in this room, all looking at a particular opportunity or solution. We're still limited to whatever we brought into the room until we create new concepts and new thoughts. That's what all of our ideas are going to be limited to. So there are limits. The thing is how to get beyond those limits. And most of us are limited based on our memories. Our memories create our expectations. And when our expectations are met, then we get angry. Right? Or we get sick, or we get dis-ease, or we get distressed. Ultimately it comes down to what are those things that stress us out. Stress is a good thing. If it wasn't for stress, this building would fall down. I don't want all stress to disappear. I need stress in this building. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a building. Right? Here's an example. Place your left hand up. Say Ma. In Hawaiian, Ma is soft. It's feminine. It's passive. It's the minus sign on the battery. Put your right hand up. Say Na. Na is positive, active. It's the masculine side of energy, while Ma is the feminine side of energy. Put your hands together. What do you have?
Mana?
Mana. Yeah. Mana is plus and minus. It's minus and plus. Mana is the life energy, the Hawaiians call it. And those that cross the desert, they call it mana. Right? You have mana. But mana is plus and minus. It's not more plus than minus. It's just enough negative, just enough positive, so that the tension between the two continue them to move. In the absence of tension, you have a flat tire. Right? You have to have enough tension for it to continue to roll. Ho'oponopono is about maintaining tension,
Let me-
balance.
That's a good point. Let me ask you a question. When we're healing others, or should I say, healing ourselves, and oftentimes improving the conditions of others as a result, what is the role of frequencies in how we change our frequency by accepting a new reality where the condition doesn't exist because we've forgiven it, we've let it go? How does that get transferred over to another person so they receive this new frequency, which has a result, the new thought patterns attached to it? How does that get projected onto?
First of it's acknowledging that everyone has their own blueprint, your own identity. And so what we're really asking for is that you are now in alignment with your own identity. Not what I want you to be, not what somebody else wants you to be, but who you really are. What is that? In whose eyes? The eyes of the Creator. Right? So when they sent me home from the hospital, they didn't give my mom the blueprint. They didn't give her the schematic. So if I need to know what's going on in me when something's wrong, I can't go to her. I have to go to the Creator, right? The main architect, the grand healer, if you would. Each of us has that identity. So what we're really doing is I'm moving out of your space, or I'm creating a neutral energy so that your energy, your identity can find itself, right? Without expectation from me or others, allow you to be you in your identity. I being the I am, the larger I, not the little I, me. And so, again, my wish is that you become who you are, who you need to become, not what I want you to be, right? And allowing people the freedom of that. And likewise, I shouldn't take your medication for my illness. Okay? The doctors tell us you shouldn't use somebody else's medication. Well, similarly with Ho'oponopono, what allowed me to become centered today isn't something I want to do for you, because that's not your reality. And unfortunately, many people are saying, well, I want to do what he did, which is what? Come to balance. But you came on it from a different part of the mountain. You came from a different path. To follow my path to your balance may not get you there. So the answer is, how do you give people the space, the time, and the ability to find themselves? By letting them be.
So
That's letting go.
So by being Pono in oneself, you help them become Pono no matter what path that is going to mean for them. It's going to get the same result, but it's not going to be the same path. You're Pono, they're going to be Pono.
It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you at that point in time. But see, if my vibration, if my eyes are always waiting for you to turn green, right? I'm always going to be let down because you're red, right? And if you try to be green, you'll be let down because you'll never be green because you're red. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is we create these imbalances within ourselves and others because we have expectations that are based not on reality, but on illusion, which is really based on my memory. Right? So I tell my students, when your reality is the product of someone else's illusion, their dreams become your nightmare. Right? Think about that.
That's true.
We try to live other people's dreams for us, and we end up having a nightmare for our rest of our lives. And that's because we really don't know who we are. Auntie Morna provided this class or this concept so that people could find themselves, their own identities. And so when we allow people to be who they are, hopefully there will be balance. Why? Because you're balanced. I'm balanced. Everyone in the room is balanced. And if each of us is balanced, then the room will be balanced. Right? And so that's what the Ho'oponopono is all about. Is that it's not about fixing a group. It's about fixing or getting the individuals in the group to where they're supposed to be. When everyone is where they're supposed to be, everyone's where they're supposed to be. As redundant as it sounds, it's that simple, but it's not that simple. not easy, it's simple. And because we have all this other noise that's in there.
What would you say in how we approach daily life? Being in present time is the key to being prepared to save ourselves in a dangerous situation. It's the key to acting responsibly or rationally in a fast-paced circumstance. How do you maintain center or keep yourself in present time in order to allow every moment to be Pono? As a memory is restimulated, you're already present and you're ready to instantly make it Pono, which is part of a constant cleaning, I suppose, of yourself. Is there a particular technique that you use? Is there philosophy to keep yourself? Eckhart Tolle talks about, as far as keeping the mental dissidence down. He says, go out into the world and look at trees, but don't see them as trees. Don't put the label trees on them. Just see it and see it, and you'll notice that you start to explore it. You experience it differently when you stop placing labels between that and that present timeness. How do you?
Well, I think that's well said. The notion of is reframe, redefine, refocus. When we begin to acknowledge that our disappointments and our expectations are really founded on either these illusions or these memories and or these falsehoods, we apply falsehoods to the truths. Because I can't accept what I see in front of me, I'm going to redefine it to make it fit me. Right? So at some point in time, you have to begin to ask yourself that first question. So what is it about me that's allowing me to see this in a way that bothers me? Because that has always been that way until I walked in the room. And now I'm going to find it upon myself to fix that. Well, who gave you the right to fix that? Right? I say. So at some point in time, we take it upon ourselves to fix other things or other people. And I think another way to ask the question that you're asking is, how do you know when something's Pono? Who defines Pono? The reality is most of us don't know we're Pono until we're not. Right? Yesterday was fine. All of a sudden today is bad. Well, I want what I had yesterday. Well, sorry, you can't go back. There is no going back. And that's the thing about Ho'oponopono. We're removing past memories, not to heal the past, but to move forward, to create a better condition. This is forward thinking, as much as it is taking the past. It says that I don't want to take my past into the future. At least that part of it that's preventing me from having a better future. So it's about understanding that the focus is on a better condition. Right now, this doesn't feel good. So I need to find a way to make it feel good. Because I can't go back to the way it used to feel. I can only move forward to the next place. So language is a big barrier. Because we use words when we really don't mean it. We don't understand what we're saying. Oh, I want to go back to being healthy. No, you want to go forward being healthy. Because if you go back, you're going to end up right here again, because the behavior that got you here, you haven't changed that behavior.
That's big.
Right? The concept of Ho'oponopono is really about shifting the criteria of decision making that got you to this point in the first place. My last boss, my boss, this boss, the boss before that, the boss, they all said the same thing about me. It must be a conspiracy. Right? I mean, you've heard it. You know, my spouse, my partner, my friend, my boss, everybody says the same thing about it must be a conspiracy. When do we take responsibility for the fact the common denominator in all of that is me? Right? And we say, I have a problem with him, I have a problem with her, I have a problem with them, I have a problem with this. What's the common denominator? I. And at the same time, I am going to spend all my time and energy convincing everyone else that everybody else is wrong.
I think we all know people like that in our lives.
Right? So that's what Ho'oponopono is saying. Ho'oponopono says, no, at some point in time, when you mentioned earlier, taking responsibility gives you responsibility. Because once I know that I'm responsible, I become responsible. I can do something about it. But until I own it, I'm expecting others to fix it. You know, I've had a pain manager. I work with a pain management group, and in the pain management group, we asked the question: now that you know everyone else's pain, do you want to give it? Do you want to exchange pains? Nobody wants somebody else's pain once they understand it. Would you give your pain to somebody else? No, I don't want their pain. Right? Then I ask them, I'll ask you, have you ever experienced physical pain? Are you experiencing one now? Okay, so let's just point to the pain, the place that you had the pain before. Go ahead and point. Okay, you're not pointing at me. That's a good thing. You didn't point to anyone else in the room, and more importantly, you pointed at you. You pointed in, which means that since it's there, it's yours. It's not hers. It's not his. It's not mine. It's not the doctors. It's not the nurses. It's not society's. It's yours. Interesting enough, the minute the patients recognize it's theirs, they can deal with it. Another question is, do you want to keep it? Or do you want to let it go? And if you're going to keep it, why are you keeping it? Keep it. As far as I'm concerned, you can have it. I don't want it. They don't want it. You don't want to give it away, so it's up to you. Once that acknowledgement happens, responsibility happens. Because now they can respond. I own this, so I can either give it away or let it, or keep it.
Mm-hmm.
So why does someone want to keep it? Well, because if I keep it, I can hold them responsible. If I keep it, I get my insurance payment. If I keep it, people feel sorry for me. If I keep it, 15 years later, everyone that used to come and help me because I need help, if I let it go, they don't help me anymore. My identity is built in my pain, therefore I'm going to keep it.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
Okay, so many of us go through our entire lives, cultures go through their entire lives, holding on to the pains and the memories of their ancestors. Because if they let it go, the world won't recognize me. Right? So I'm going to be a butthead the rest of my life because everyone knows me as a butthead. Right? I'm going to go to prison because I have no construct of my own. So I need somebody else to give me construct. I'll be mad at the prison guard, but I'm glad I'm in prison. Why? Because I don't have construct on my own. How do I know? Every time they let me out, I come back. Why do I come back? Because I have no construct outside. I don't have control of what I need to do. So I put the responsibility on somebody else, called society. But whether it's prison, or whether it's disliking somebody, it's the same thing. It all comes down to the same thing. It comes down to memory. It comes down to expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So in a nutshell, Ho'oponopono, the process as was taught by Auntie Morna, is to say, how do you remove the memory from within you so that you can replace it with something of equal or greater value, something that's higher, so you no longer look. Your criteria of decision making is completely changed. And but it's acknowledging that there are three parts of us, which is a whole. That's another hour. That's a lesson in and of itself, which I think a lot of people are missing. Is that there's a place within us, ourselves, what I call me, myself, and the I. Right? There's you, this unconscious thing, and then there's that other part that's inside, that's always talking to us, that soft voice, the Unihipili. I didn't read the book. Did they mention any of this in the book?
I don't remember that part.
Okay. And so that's important because in the teaching there are three acknowledgments of three minds, three selves in one mind. In the Western world, we separated these minds into mind, body, right? Spirit. So we've already said there are three, and most of us are spending a lot of time trying to bring these three things together, right? Well, they were never apart. Our languages created that. So in other words, we are one mind made up of three parts, right? The spiritual, the mental, and the physical. In Hawaiian, it's Aumakua, Uhane, and Unihipili. These are the three things. And one is the higher self that connects you to all things, like the computer, internet service provider. It connects you to the World Wide Web, right? Then the conscious mind, the Uhane, which is like the programmer. That's you sitting at your computer. And then there's the Unihipili. That's your subconscious mind. That's the memory bank. That's where everything is stored. Well, until you plug into the internet and your ISP, the conversation is between you and the memory. Right? And so if you get a virus in the memory, there's nothing you can do about it until you clean that memory out. That memory is going to keep playing that over and over again because all it knows, like the computer, if you type a wrong letter, it doesn't know that it's wrong. It says, you gave it to me, I'm going to eat it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything that's in us is a product of what we see, hear, think, taste, touch. It's there. Our subconscious doesn't acknowledge whether it's right or wrong. In the Hawaiian mindset of Ho'oponopono, the subconscious is the child, the conscious mind is the mother. If my mom fed this to me because she loves me, it must be okay. So the subconscious mind eats it, stores it, and keeps it. And that conversation becomes a circular conversation between mother and child. So the memory is actually in the subconscious. Therefore, the memory is the problem. All the stuff around us is the symptom. We've developed a system of dealing with symptoms. Medicine is symptoms, right? We're trying to fix symptoms, but the real cause is the memory. Remove the memory, the symptoms go away. People walk into your lives to get you angry. Symptoms. Where's the problem? Memory. Remove the memory, those symptoms leave. They're no longer in your life. That's what that book's all about, right? But how do I know that? Who does that? Well, you need the higher self. That's that third part. That's the part that connects you to divinity. And that part's always there. All we have to do is connect. So the Ho'oponopono process is really a process of uniting those three selves. That's when you become Pono. The word Pono means integrity. So when you have integrity within self, then the world around you has integrity. In other words, when your mind, your body, your spirit, your amakua, your uhane, uni, pili are together, you're now mindful. You're a full mind. When you're sick, diseased, or disordered, you're mindless. Essentially, you're out of your mind. Right? So when you're Pono, you're in your right mind. When you have a headache, when you have a physical ache, when you have an emotional ache, you're mindless. You're out of your mind. And so you do things that don't seem appropriate. That's what that means. So Pono is to get back to mindfulness. When I become mindful, mind, body, and spirit, I am now have integrity. My outside is like my inside. And I'm now connected to all that is correct. The divine. That's Pono. So when I'm Pono, you're Pono. That's why someone can sit in the room, clear their mind, clear themselves, and others begin to feel better.
What would you say the framework is for getting somebody who is, they're in denial about a circumstance in their life? So what they do is they, like you were mentioning earlier, they bend all reasoning toward making that illness or that a bad condition, making it correct. So they say, well, I've got this heartache because my children don't care about me, and then instead of saying, that's my interpretation of what's happening, and I need to handle that, instead they continue to build justification to make themselves right in that. And then maybe you go to that person and you try to explain to them, well, you have power over your perception of what's happening here. And then they will refute that with, no, you don't know my story. Right. No, I have a whole heap of evidence to the contrary. And so they continue to bend the facts to make this right so that they're not made wrong. And as a result, they never get out of it. Now, that's an endless circle.
Correct. How
do you pull somebody who's really created a momentum against themselves out of that situation? Is there a revelation that they can, or an epiphany that you can lead them to it?
Well, I over the years, again, I've been doing this since 1992, since Auntie Barney left, and we've had, literally thousands of people have come to the classes, and we get these kinds of questions, and we have people like that. There are some people that have to go through the class 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, because as I begin to wipe away the dust and the crud from my lens, I begin to see things a little differently, right? And so sometimes it's not something you can tell, it's something you have to show. They have to see it, they have to experience it. There's the old adage, is that people say, I'll believe it when I see it. you'll see it when you believe it. Until then, you won't see it, right? So there's got to be a belief, and those beliefs are based on assumptions, right? So if you make an assumption about something, you're gonna find everything to prove that assumption to be true, because, like you said, you don't want to be right. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But at some point in time, when there are enough people around you, enough experiences where their reality is contradictory to your own, you have to start asking the question, right? So until you are in a condition that is very different from the one that you've created for yourself, you're always going to believe that which you created. The concept is we tend to support what we create.
So a person is going to either come to a knowledge of a system like Ho'oponopono or some related philosophy. They're going to all of a sudden find themselves in a circumstance where they have to reevaluate themselves because of a surplus of people who have different experiences around them, or they're basically on their own treadmill of doom, and like you said, they're disconnected from the internet, so they're just going to repeat that cycle, and there really is no other interference.
Yeah, and I think we'll find people to commiserate with us, right? And the law of attraction does that too, right? Because I need to prove that the world is bad. I will put myself in every situation that is bad and prove it to myself and to everyone else. See, I told you, I told you, I told you. Well, another person is saying the world is good, and they will be in a condition to say, see, I told you, the world is good. Because the cosmos and the energy of the world wants to be helpful. So if you say, I can't, the universe says, you're right, you can. So we won't let you. Right? You say, I can, it'll say, great, you can. And it'll help you there too. But unfortunately, those of us that are trapped in that belief have a very difficult time seeing that in others, because we consider that luck. You know, why then luck? You know, this is really what the real condition is, because it's my condition. And so we define the rest of the world around us. I mean, there was a time when we thought the earth was the center of the universe. Well, see, that's called self-centeredness. Ho'oponopono is a pathway to being centered in self. Very different. So the answer is, when a person becomes centered in self, they can stand in a hurricane and let it be a hurricane. That's what Ho'oponopono is. Ho'oponopono is not to stop the bull from charging. Ho'oponopono doesn't stop the hurricane from being a hurricane. Ho'oponopono allows you to find comfort in the hurricane and recognize, I'm in a hurricane. I need to go protect myself and my family. I can't stop the hurricane. The reality is the hurricane is what it is. When we change the conditions that created the hurricane, no more hurricane. But in the meantime, these are the conditions. Ho'oponopono is about creating conditions so that these problems don't happen anymore. But if you have the same conditions, expect it to be the case.
Same results.
Very simple. For that part, it's very simple. You know, and I'll give this one example. If you walk into your home and you find mice on your floor, mice running around on the floor, what's the problem?
Probably finding food. You have an infestation.
You have an infestation, okay? But is the problem the infestation? It's a perceived problem. The problem is the floor is dirty. The mice are hungry. 1 + 1 is 2. They just all add up, right? The problem isn't that they're hungry. The problem is that you've got food in the floor and you got a hole in the door, right? So our world teaches us, I have a mouse problem. No, you have a cleanliness problem. So to deal with my cleanliness problem, I get a mouse trap. We kill a mouse for doing what it naturally does. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it doesn't make sense.
We don't want to take responsibility for the fact that I have a dirty floor. So Ho'oponopono says, clean. Clean the floor, close the door, and let the mouse go eat what it wants to eat someplace else. Okay? That's the truth of it all. So we have to ask ourselves, how many times do we define the problem, the symptom as the problem? The mice on the floor is a symptom. The problem is I've been leaving food on the floor. That's me. That's not the mouse. right? Well, nobody wants to acknowledge that. We don't want to acknowledge that it could be me. So we got to blame the mouse. Whether the mouse is 6 feet 2, right? The mouse is society. The mouse is your neighbor. Goes back to your question. Until we acknowledge that I'm responsible for what's on the floor, we're always going to find the mouse to step on.
So I think I've really gained a really sound conceptual understanding of what Ho'oponopono is through this discussion with you. And it, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really just the entirety of this. It is fixing the circumstances outside by fixing yourself. If it's in another person, it's because it's in you. If you don't like it, fix yourself. Fix the corresponding emotion that is arising in you, which you are putting your attention on, in order for the condition to fall away. And this is basically the whole of whether it's a mental condition, whether it's a continuing physical aberration, or it's a relationship issue. These are just symptoms of emotions you're harboring.
That's correct.
And set them out to sea, let them go, and you've got an empty bay.
That's correct. The object is to let go. So we all heard this notion, forgive and forget. That's what Ho'oponopono is. When I get to the point where I can forgive, and I can let it go, forget, right? It's no longer something that I'm there with me. But interesting enough, when you take the 2 4s off, right, you give to get, right? The reciprocity agreement is that I have to let go, but I also have to give something. What I'm giving time, I'm giving heart, I'm giving focus. I have to give in sometimes to this concept. So the language is really powerful. So you're pretty much on track. The object is that the problems in our lives are really symptoms of problems in our lives. It's an inside job. So the memories that are within me are what's producing what's going on around me. So if you don't like what's going on around you, look in, not out. Remove what's inside, and outside will change. And so what will happen is that someone will come to Ho'oponopono, they'll start doing the process on a regular basis, and everyone around them begins to change. They say, well, you guys are so different today. Well, you look better today. Well, they're the same people. What's different? My lens. I'm looking at the world differently. See? And because I'm no longer walking into the room holding up my psychological hands. Right? I'm not carrying an axe every time I walk into the room. I don't have a chip on my shoulder when I walk in the room. If you walk into a room where people are calm and peaceful, and you send that energy off, what do you think they're going to do?
That was an amazing interview. I'll tell you what, it rocked my socks off. If yours aren't on your feet, you better look for them, because when you forget, when these things go away, when you forget about it, and the time comes that you need your socks after they've been rocked off, your chances are you're short a sock, and you're going to blame the dryer for it. But I'm telling you, now's the time to find it. But in all seriousness, that was an amazing interview. It was deeply transformative. It was very validating for me, and I enjoy studying a lot of things. And I really, really appreciate his honesty and the way he was able to connect the dots. When it comes to Ho'oponopono, it really seems to go above and beyond most philosophies as far as accountability. And I think that was the biggest lesson, is how accountable are you willing to be for your life, for the circumstances that you're in, for the consequences of other people's actions. That is really the true mark of I would say, a kahuna. I would say of the shaman, a spiritual leader, is taking that responsibility. So if you're willing to go to that level, I think you might be ready to start pursuing Ho'oponopono full time. Next, I had, now when I first met this guy, Mark, that's who we're going to talk about now. When I first met him, I wanted to sit down and let's just have an interview. And he said, no, let's talk first. And I said, well, all right, let's do that. even better. Well, what I didn't know is that I should have ran the cameras the whole time anyway, because it turned into one of the most astounding discussions that I've ever had with anybody in my life. The power and the storytelling ability of this man, the way he's able to bring incidences of time past and bring them into the here and now, and bring them alive through his body. The kinds of stories and the things that he said to us, I could tell you, and I wouldn't do it any justice, because the stories are just so unbelievable that you just have to hear it from the horse's mouth to believe it. And so, so as not to discredit him, I'm going to let him tell his own story his own way. And so later on, the next morning, early in the morning, they're in a local state park in Honolulu. We had a discussion, and it was a peaceful morning, and it was a very interesting deep talk. So I want you to listen to this man. I classify as a big kahuna. He doesn't classify himself as a big kahuna because of some technicality, so he said when I asked him, but he really is a big kahuna. And Ramsey also has that spirit of leadership also that you would expect to find in a big kahuna. You know, kahunas are people who led the villages. They're the shaman, the spiritual leaders. And I have a feeling that Mark is ready to become the shaman or the leader for a great many people outside of the people he's able to touch on a daily basis, right here, right now.
Trippy, Alan's neck came out. Huh?
Yeah, got me all excited.
Like a bullet.
Depicted with either a rock walls that surround it or a raised platform of rocks. Keaiva was the name of the kahuna that built this back in the 1700s or 1500s. I can't remember. Now that's overrun, sort of. That chicken make his home over here. There's several chickens that live up in here. This is a state park. And up inside, if we follow the road, it's another maybe quarter mile up and around. There's some campgrounds, and you get to the top. There's some hiking trails that take you to the top of the mountain where you can see on the other side of the island.
Very quiet and peaceful.
This heiau was a healing heiau. So the kahuna Keaiva did healing work over here. He lived up here. This was his house. The big joke we have amongst us is you have to walk all the way up the mountain. It wasn't no car you rode in the car to come up to get healed. You had to actually walk, or your family and friends carried you up the mountain.
Oh.
So it's like, okay, wow. So to say I don't believe in gravity is a thought, but it's actually kind of a novice type of thought. Because whether you believe it or not, it's still going to affect you. Step off a building, you find out how quickly it can affect you. Yeah. So the invisible forces that are moving amongst us, whether they're spiritual beings or gravity, energy, whatever it is, learning to become aware of that is something that I hadn't a clue, like ghosts. The first experience I ever really had that I can remember of spirits and beings was a movie called The Exorcist. That was put out around 1973 or something like that. It scared me silly. Really scary, yeah. So when I thought about possessing spirits and stuff like that, that's what I knew when I heard about things like that in church and people being possessed, and it seemed like there was always this kind of a confrontational thing, and it scared the bejeebies out of people. And so that's what I thought. And then I started working on people. That first experience I told you about, But when the spirit came up to the surface, it blew my soul out, and I came back in, and it got really intensely. The voice changed, and the face changed, and the windows were blowing in. The light bulbs and the chandeliers popped, and the door slammed. Boom! My hair stood straight up on my skin. My fellow student was in the back, sticking his head in the couch pillows and trying to cover his ears because he didn't like the quality of the voice that was coming out of what he was saying. And yet at the same time, being right there in the midst of the battle, if you can call it that, having that other energy come through me and listening to my own voice change. Okay, that was my first conscious experience of channeling, if you want to call channeling, bringing in a higher vibrational force that comes through you. And I really didn't know a clue. I was clueless that night. And then most of the times when I was working, I had studied hypnosis, but I didn't really understand. It took me a few times, and after a while I started to get the hang of this. And after a couple, maybe 100 people I've worked on and seen different realities, I started to understand that it really is in death. When people die, that's when I started to realize that if they've not died a peaceful death, they don't go home. In the sense of there's not a completion of sorts. Something's incomplete. It would happen. Most of the time, it would be some kind of calamity. I did a Ho'oponopono workshop in Detroit 1 year. Back around 92, 93 or so is when I was traveling to Buffalo. We drove from Buffalo over to Detroit by going across the border into Toronto. Drove across Canada a little bit. It was a shorter distance. Then we dropped back over the border into Detroit, did a workshop at a hotel that was close to the airport. And there was a point inside here, when doing the workshops and doing Ho'oponopono, when I share the prayer. And once I share the prayer, I also will do the prayer together as a group. So 15 or 20 of us that were doing the workshop together. In sharing the prayer, I spoke the words and then they would follow me. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Son, is me. And continuing on with the prayer, there's a point inside there where you can ask any and all earthbound spirits who want to go to the light. The room got really thick. I mean, I've never experienced that before. This is the first time I experienced so many beings coming into the room and being present. So the 15 of us in the space of a room about this big was okay. But it got really thick. So thick, the air was so thick that we couldn't even breathe. It felt like we were burning. Like I was in a room breathing real thick, fiery, burning smoke. And when they're finally able to complete it, so I said the words and the students would say, any and all earthbound spirits who are choosing to go to the light at this time, burn, sever, cut, release, transmute, return to the path of pure light. Nod. And when they did that part, the whole room got light. There was like a vortex that was spinning above us. You could sense that the ceiling that disappeared and become like a huge vortex that was descending up. And finally, there was a point inside there where everybody was looking around at each other saying, what the hell was that? I went into the restroom, threw cold water in my face and said, what the hell was that? Even me, I was the leader, supposed to know what was going on. Didn't have a clue. I went from the restroom after I composed myself. I went to the front desk and I asked him, I said, has there been any kind of a death or something like that around here in the past year or two where many people died? And they said, yeah, there was a jetliner that crashed and I don't know, 80 or so people died in the fire. I said, oh shit. Next time I do these things, I better be prepared. So, because I was traveling a lot across the country during that time, working with different companies, from New York, Boston, all the way down to Florida, across to, I've been to Dallas many times, Louisville, Kentucky. Doing the different trainings, I had an opportunity to meet people like Tommy and his fiance and work with them. And each time I worked with him, I found another different part of the puzzle, if you will. So in working with him, thousands of people now since that time. It's for me, it's like a whole big picture has been created. I'm starting to understand parallel universes, another, or more like adjacent, maybe. Parallel means they don't touch, but they're actually intersecting another Earth where a guy was trying to blow up the whole planet and had already moved people up into spaceships outside of the planet.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, going back into past lifetimes with different people who ended up in, one man was an Aztec priest amongst people in Mexico, doing the temples out there, the pyramids out there. So that experience is what caused me to start to really understand how those kinds of things work. And going back to what Mona taught us is, their basic premise is says, in healing people, you got to heal the spiritual side first, mind and emotion second and third. And if you can finish those three parts, if they're mind, body, spirit, and emotions, if you can heal the invisible components, the spiritual side, the mind, the emotions, then the physical body will change. And when I've watched the people change, I mean they change incredibly. Another one that I will tell you about, and we'll move on a little bit, is a lady that I met in Kentucky. She wanted to meet with me and have me work with her. And she told me, I'm going to share something with you that I've never told anybody. And my intuition said, okay. She was almost deaf in one ear and about 50% deaf in this ear. I asked her if she had any friends at the training there. She said, yeah, I have 2 lady friends. These friends, that you trust them? Well, ask them to come in them. Many times the trainings were done in big hotels where they had big seminar rooms where they did the training. So I'm staying in a hotel. I would go up to either their room or they came to my room. So her 2 friends and her came to my room. And she said, when I was 16, my stepfather used to come and visit me. And they'd come and we'd have sex. And I didn't understand what my mom thought her husband was doing every night at around 11 or 12 o'clock because he visited her. What did she think he was doing? And how come she wasn't getting pregnant? She was baptized Catholic, so going to church and going to confessions, they go to a confessional and offer, sit with the priest and forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, and talk about the way she sinned. She never told nobody. This was back in the 60s, in someplace around the Kentucky area. And maybe those things happen amongst families, but this was something she never told her friends, she never told anybody. One night when she heard her stepfather coming out the door from his bedroom, started walking down the hall towards hers, he walked past her and he was going to her sister's bedroom, who was 12. Before that, she was praying to everything. Mother Mary, Jesus, everybody to come and help her. God, please make this stop. That night, when he walked past her room and she knew he was going, you could hear him opening up his sister's bed. She talked to the devil. She prayed to the devil to give her the strength to confront herself. Something came into her. And she went down the hall. They had a confrontation, and after that night, all the visitation stopped. So when I met her, she's in her early 30s in a seminar in Kentucky. And she feels like she made a deal with the devil. She was definitely afraid. She didn't know what to do about it. So the next thing for me to do is to basically call on the devil. That's the name, and let's talk to the devil and figure these things out. And sure enough, when he started to come in, the energy in the room changed and it got cold. Cold enough that you could see steam coming from her voice and from mine. And the 2 girlfriends were sitting with their blankets around them off to the side. And basically, it was just me talking to him for a while. And I said to him, people don't really understand what you do. No. That night we did a service. This one is mine. That night we were the only being in the universe that was willing to come and give her the strength, or the confidence to confront her stepmother. You took the visitation stopped. Thank you. Thank you so much. This one is mine. If you really are who you say you are, then you know that two things that you cannot avoid. One is all souls can choose, the other one is all souls have free will and free choice. On behalf of this woman, I won't say her name, on behalf of, I'll call her Sue. On behalf of Sue, I'm here tonight to talk with you. If you really are who you say you are, you know that all souls can choose. Let's talk to Sue for a while. Sue, please come to the surface and talk to me. Sue, how are you doing? Do you still want the devil to be with you? Be one of the devil's possessions? And I said, no. This is your body, you can say it when you want. Honestly, he helped me. He was really good. But I'm so afraid. Again, I asked you, so do you want to be with the devil, be part of the devil with you? Honestly, no. When he came back up to the surface again, Sue kind of sat back a little bit. All of this is happening through Sue in her body. So she's in deep hypnosis or hypnotic state, and she's just very relaxed. When people come up to the surface, famous that was in Tommy, or in this case, Lucifer, that's inside of Sue. When he came back up to the surface, I said again to him, so people don't really understand your function, your role. Again, on behalf of Sue and her sister, I want to thank you very much. You heard what Sue had to say. She no longer wants to be with you. If you are who you say you are, then you know that you no longer welcome you to be with Sue. She wants to have her. On behalf of Sue, I thank you so much. And for you. So little time. I'll see you again. The angels that got light. Called in the angels to come in and move in and just bring healing energy, bring light energy to Sue's body so that she can physically be better as a result of that. Because for some 20 or so years, she lived with the reality that on some level she made a deal with the devil. And she didn't want to tell him, nobody, mom, priest, anybody, any of her close friends in school. These two ladies were friends that she had met in the seminar and felt really connected. As a result of that healing process, this ear, the healing was completely done so she could hear perfectly in this ear. And this year, this one was coming back, I would say 50 or 75%. This one was almost done.
The medicine couldn't fix that.
We didn't go in to heal the hearing problem. We went in to deal with what she was afraid of. And I don't remember all the words, but there was a real beautiful part where the two ladies watching the session. Many times I do take some time to work with the client, in this case Sue or Tommy, who became Thomas, to help them understand that it really wasn't Tommy that was beating him. It really was him. And he was doing it out of the anger that he had of his mother. That's where the discrepancy, the uneasiness, the skip in the record, that's what's wrong. So in Ho'oponopono and the Hawaiian wisdom, the Kahuna, they know that you have a headache, but better go look at what's causing the headache. When you have sadness inside you, go look at the root cause. If you can resolve the root cause, then the symptoms and the disease, that will go away.
So speaking to, speaking to the spirits, is this a traditional or typical part of Ho'oponopono?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in healing the spiritual side of anyone, we're working, the part of us that does know, we're taught in our Western world to go to seek answers outside of ourselves. In a more traditional sense, especially in those cultures where they have and they nurture spirituality, like in India, in China, through their Taoist traditions, and their Buddhist traditions throughout Asia, they realize that the answers are not to be found by seeking outside of them. They realize the wisdom says the answers are within. So, Ho'oponopono, heal the spiritual side, the mind and emotions, and the physical body. Yes. Turn it inside out. So healing the spiritual side means what part of me knows that I am a spirit, or what does that exist in my conscious mind, who I think I am, and how I make my life decisions every day. I really don't have an awareness, but my subconscious mind, it's way more powerful. It's tracking and recording all the time. It's not only recording sound, it's recording sight. It's recording space, so like three-dimensional. If you could pull up a memory, it becomes like a holographic image. And because it's a holographic image shooting in this direction, that's where the recording, that's where the camera was shooting from. But the reality is it actually, because it creates a three-dimensional time and space, or four-dimension, it can actually move around. So when people are remembering in this dreamlike world that what happened in the past, you can have them, if they're looking at it horizontally, you can actually have them go above and look at it from above. So you're taking a recording that's recorded by the subconscious mind. They recorded it and it imprinted on a hard drive into something called the Akashic Records. But the other place that it stores the memory is within its physical body. The subconscious mind is the part that I need to access when I'm working with Tommy or Sue or Mary, John, Adam, whoever I'm working with. Their subconscious mind knows what's wrong. What we're not taught in our Western world is how to go after that. Now, I say that on one level, but there are many doctors across America and around the world that are tapping into this wisdom, where they find out that if they work with hypnosis, they can have the client go back to the source of what's causing their sadness. If they're working as a psychologist, their depression, and they might talk about childhood memories and working in some way to relive that. Many times they'll end up in another place and time that would seem like a past life. So most sadness and depression, many anger, is based on something that didn't happen in this moment, it happened at some point in the past. And the part of us that remembers all of that is the subconscious mind. And it's like an incredible computer that can remember on so many levels, because like it's recording, like I said, like a holographic image. It's tracking all the birds that are chirping, the chickens that are crowing, the cars that went by. We're not conscious of it, but if we go into a subconscious state, you can actually go back and look at the car and shift from the perspective of being in this little pavilion and actually go back and look at who was driving the car. So the subconscious mind is really much more fascinating. It's putting in place all the trees, all the tables, the rock walls, the floor, concrete floor, the grass, and the weather right now, it's a little bit chilly out, the air is not moving, raining. It's recording all of that, what I'm saying, what I'm not saying, what I'm implying, how I feel, my body, it's beating my heart, making hair on my skin. There was a study that was done back in the 1970s sometimes, They said the power of the subconscious mind was way more powerful than the conscious. The conscious mind can track about 5 to 7 things per second. Consciously watching and being aware of about 5 to 7 things per second. The subconscious mind was tracking about 376 trillion bits of information per second. Dots that it could fill in, the average person in the West. Might be a little different maybe in the third world country in Africa or other places, but at the time they actually got to a bigger number. They scared themselves and they said, no, it can't possibly be there. So scientists in general, if it's really this big, they learn to cut it in half, and maybe cut it in half again. The essence of that, if you try to put 5 over 376 trillion and see 5 sets of 3 zeros behind it, say, okay, the tip of the iceberg, and this big part below. So the wisdom, the whole Kahuna knew that the person himself didn't really know what was wrong. Why did Moki break his leg today? I don't know, I fell down, I got my rock, my leg got caught in a rock, and I was twisting when I fell, and the leg broke. That's what Moki knows. The Kahuna knows something else, so he would just touch him gently like this in my forehead, and be speaking to him and helping lean back. And those that working with the Kahuna would help catch Moki. They had so much presence and power about them. Touch him and they'd be chanting to him. And Moki, you could see him just pressing. They'd catch him, they'd put him up on the altar like this. Maybe sometimes one drumming. Moki stopped trying, journey. Like when we're talking, we could sitting along and say, how can you remember why it is like? Talk to the rocks. Ask the rocks why you help Moki break his leg. Something that was incomplete in another place and time brought that to this moment. So that's a simple example of how they did things in the past. Where they're going to do things like sometimes drumming, sometimes chanting. This is a place where they would do that kind of. This is a healing temple here. Coming here, talking about Ho'oponopono, looking at that beauty and feeling the energy. It's like you can feel the energy of the rock walls, its own presence of being. Enapo haku o meku uhan. The rock, the haku, is spirit. Enavaya meku uhan. The water that's flowing in the streams and the rivers, that has a spirit. In the Aina Mekuruhani, the land has spirit. In the Makani Mekuruhani, the wind has a spirit. Right now, the wind is being so quiet and creating this space for us. Just gently. This gentle feeling that you have is how we work with any client. Mona said to us, anytime you work with the subconscious mind, you gotta do it very gently. Don't grab it and shake it and demand it. It's all it's gonna do is like a sea anemone, we call it. The seashells that cling to rocks. If you try to grab the shell and pull it, it'll just hunker down and hang on even tighter like a barnacle. The wisdom is that you stick your little flat knife blade like a putty knife blade. They all have the guys that tickle feet, the barnacle shells. They all have their own little special knife that they use, kind of a flat bladed big butter knife like that. They'll put it under and then at the same time, second it. This first, this second. The shells can be this big around or something like that. So they gotta go underneath you. Otherwise, it's like a suction cup and it'll sit down. If you work with the subconscious mind and you try force it, it just goes right up. You cannot really get anywhere. So as quickly as possible, when I started learning hypnosis and doing this kind of work, I saw that in California. The teacher who taught me, he was releasing entities from people too. I was like, okay. And I saw him work, and it was time for him to release the entity. The client would be laying on his back, face up, and he'd get position himself physically towards the top of the belly head area. And it's time to cut the energetic cords that kept it together as one. He would slap him right on the forehead. And some of the healings that they do in some of the churches or in the Bible Belt, where they get the person out of release the thing from you in the name of God. Or I've have some vague memories of seeing that happen, and maybe 10 people standing up and he hit him on the floor. It's not that people will catch him as he fell back or her. That kind of healing. I said, oh my God, don't ever hit me like that. Something's going to come up out of me and just tear you rid of me. So I thought, okay, that's not the way to work. So I stopped my training with that hypnotist and I said, okay, that's it, I'm done. I learned from him what I needed to see, which is basically how to help someone get into a very quiet, relaxed state. They call it an induction. Many ways of induction and using induction. That this moment, you feel that the quietness is almost, the stillness is so. This is when the ancestors are coming. My ancestors were coming around us. It's so important that you get send this to the world. The heaviness of the skies. There's so much sadness in the world. Transforming the sadness into light. That's what the essence of the prayer is. Cleanse, sever, cut, release, transmute, return it to the heart. That's the essence of saying I'm sorry. Please forgive me. There was Amos working with Lucifer. That being is here to give people an option. They can choose to turn away from the God, the Creator, and be angry at him like Amos was. God is so big and powerful, he's going to let his children do whatever they want to do. We have free choice and free will. Someplace, somewhere along the history of man on this earth, people started hurting each other. Someplace back in the Bible talked about Cain and Abel. One of them killed his brother. Why do people kill each other? The people that lived on these islands, they were kind to each other. They would always take care of each other. They never saw themselves separate from their environment, whether it's the rocks or the land. Even the little children knew how to talk to the spirit of the trees and the wind. Commune with God. They were kind. They never really killing each other didn't exist on the islands. The original inhabitants were fair-skinned. They were smaller in size and they had oriental eyes. Eventually, they were known as Menehune. In Hawaii now, we think the Menehune were little short people, pygmy-sized, little pot bellies. Kind of the story got off in a little tangent, and that's what it ends up. Menehune, water, and different companies. Again, thinking of a little short person like a leprechaun, so that could do magical things. But the Menehune people did exist. They lived on these islands. Migrations brought different natives from the South Islands, like Samoa, Tahiti. They came here, and they were more warlike, bigger in size, very dark skin. When they started killing the inhabitants, they didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to them because that's not something they did. They lived in different villages and they dressed a little bit differently according to how the people in this part of the village and this part of the island lived. But they all knew that they were not better than anything else. They were not dominating. They didn't have amongst them any thought or desire to do any killing. They were warriors. When they finally tried to conquer them, the Menehune people, when they finally caught on to what was going on, they had already overtaken the Big Island and Maui. So on Molokai, they made their stand. This is okay. When the warriors came in the canoes to attack them on Molokai, they went and met them out by the ocean, stood in water about waist deep, hand to hand, and they started chanting together. And their chanting created an energetic field. So the warriors were throwing their spears from their canoes and rocks and their slings on stones and their spears. The spirits would either fly over him or fly or fall short. They hit an energetic field and they would fall short. No words got close enough. They got out of the canoe and into the water to start attacking them with clubs. And the water for them felt like fire, so they got back in the canoes and they looked back at these people and said, these people, small people, they are manahuna. They have invisible power. Huna means invisible, mana is the life force. Eventually the word manahuna became menehune. And eventually they couldn't conquer them that way, so when the menehune people were still living like on Oahu, the warrior chief would befriend one of the women who were menehune. They developed a relationship, and then they kind of came in through the kitchen door, basically. So the menehune people and the warrior people started to blend. So the Hawaiian people today are a blend of that. They have a part of them that's warrior-like. They have another part of them that can be very gentle and kind. So I realize it's a little cold up there. Didn't expect it to be cold. It's nice for me. You okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So questions about Ho'oponopono?
So one of the questions that I had was, we all have free will and
Free
also free choice. How can you stop other souls from latching onto you subconsciously, or whether you're aware about it or not aware about it?
It's really about learning about who you are and realizing that you exist in two levels. Until you start to learn about that and contemplate the potential that you can become a source of energy for something else. And it's not just human spirits that are moving when, let's say, they die, not happy, didn't go to heaven, whatever reason, they're still here on the earth plane. Sometimes they're afraid, they don't know what to do. They realize that maybe I'm dead, but I don't want to go. Where do I go after I'm dead? Some people don't know about heaven. They're forgotten and they're lost. Whether it's humans, and sometimes the energetic beings that are moving here are not humans, they're more like dragon spirits. Other beings that come inside, we use humans as a source of food because our bodies make energy. And so who you are, and realizing that you exist in two levels. Until you start to learn about that and contemplate the potential that you can become a source of energy for something else. And it's not just human spirits that are moving when, let's say, they die, not happy, didn't go to heaven, whatever reason, they're still here on the earth plane. Sometimes they're afraid, they don't know what to do. They realize that maybe I'm dead, but I don't want to go. Where do I go after I'm dead? Some people don't know about it. They're forgotten and they're lost. Whether it's humans, and sometimes the energetic beings that are moving here are not humans, they're more like dragon spirits. Other beings that come inside, we use humans as a source of food because our bodies make energy. And so, until you realize that moment that you're really not top of the food chain, when you're top of the food chain, you're like sitting on a throne, you're like a king sitting on a throne, you don't even worry about nothing. So long you make enough money, you can pay your bills, you're okay, you can buy things. But when you're top of the food chain, it means that other things can come to you and use you as food. It'll become real obvious when mosquitoes start flying around, they start biting you and say, your blood, they're after your blood. There's energetic beings that are after the energy that's generated by your body. And so, realizing that, hey, you might wake up to that reality and say, maybe I should do something about this, learn self-defense or something. And once you do that, then you can start to become more aware of how your body is, start to learn about the law of attraction. Didn't know about gravity, now I realize gravity is important. I didn't know about the law of attraction, now I realize the law of attraction is important because the basic law of attraction says that like attracts like energy. But if you really look at the law of attraction, then also realize that opposites attract. You look at it and it exists in nature outside of us and it exists inside me too. So even if I become real, what they say in Hawaiian, akamai, real smart about who I am, I get this on many levels and develop my personal power, my ability to be grounded and being humble and gentle and kind and at the same time be present, fully present. doesn't mean that I'm ever escaped from that reality that something can come and cling to me and use me as a source of energy. So then the next part is learning to develop this energetic field that naturally exists around me, actually taking time and stillness and causing the energy field to become very strong, teaching my subconscious mind a new habit of grounding itself through my feet into the earth and drawing the earth's energy to become part of me, and reaching up through my crown to bring down heaven's energy. So heaven and earth, and blending and meeting that inside my heart area. Where does heaven meet earth? If man is contemplating that, at some point you realize it happens in your heart. Earth coming up and heaven coming down. When you start to practice more, whether you're practicing an energy form like Bhagwan and increasing your energy connection to earth, and then shifting your attention and connecting to heaven above and creating that reality like Tai Chi or another form of Qigong, earth Qi, and moving, heaven Qi, and moving it, creating a vortex that spins coming down. If I do that, then I start to become more powerful, energy of heaven, energy of earth inside me, and then telling my body, shield, use that energy to shield itself and ward off. So like in the Star Wars movies, in Little Yoda, when he got into his fighting mode, there was a point inside there where somebody was shooting energy at him. And as soon as they're close enough, it was like a bubble came around him. We say his aura. The Hoi Kahuna called the aura Kino Aka, the body's life force. So then your subconscious mind has a different way to deal with things that want to come unattached to you. Because it normally has its energy field, but unless you actually give it more fuel for thought and feed it more and develop that ability, it'll be like everybody else. It kind of watches what everybody else is doing, so it'll do what everybody else is doing. And if nobody's doing this, bringing down the heavens and connected to earth stuff, then it won't do it either. Unless it learned it well in another lifetime, then that wisdom comes with it forward. I've seen so many stories recently on YouTube and Facebook and things like that of incredible kids. Whether this little kid had the ability to throw a ball in the hoops or a guitar, playing a guitar and running the rock band at the age of 6 and 7, being the lead guitarist and the drummer and the other musicians trying to keep up with it. And this little 6-year-old boy is running the group. They're like, holy smoke, how can you do that? Some great singers, I've seen it so much recently in the past several years, of how incredibly gifted people are coming in. How can a 6-year-old boy run a rock band? Where the hell did he learn that? Wasn't in this life. More and more information is surfacing about living many lifetimes. And so the reality, you embrace that, comes to be. Getting back to how can I keep things off of me? It's more about learning about who you are. I would say the first step from any person who's thinking about this is learn more about who you are, how you work, learning more about your body, your conscious, your subconscious mind, how they work, and also learn about your spirit, the divine part that is you. Most people don't spend a lot of time contemplating that. The part of you that will live on past your physical death, the divine nature. That part and the physical mind, conscious body, how it works together, conscious, subconscious, all of that works. And then learning to do things with energy. That's what I would say. Long answer. Other questions about Ho'oponopono?
How would you use Ho'oponopono to reconcile yourself to the spirit realm, other than healing oneself in the maladies that will keep you out of present time? Is there a way to bring yourself into a spiritual plane where you can experience or interact with spiritual beings more easily using Ho'oponopono in particular ways?
Ho'oponopono means to take actions to make everything right. It can be as simple as going inside your house and cleaning everything up. Once you clean everything up, in my place, I have a place where I meditate, my altar room where I do healing work and I also do meditation. So to set the altar right, to take time to make it pono, clean up the room, keep the energy in that space more positive, if you will, as opposed to being negative. When I work with people, sometimes they're going through a lot of sadness and working to transform their energy that came into the space to positive. So that's one of the things that I would do. The next thing is actually giving myself times. There's two different things that happens with us when you want to grow spiritually. One of them is cultivating stillness, absolute stillness. There's no thought, which is the closest thing to impossible in our Western, because your mind is always thinking something. Go study with a meditation teacher who's very good. If they come from a tradition, it's nice. If they can just do it, it's even better. Yoga is a good practice because you're using your breath, consciously using your breath, putting your body in certain postures. The teacher is encouraging certain alignment of your body, and at the same time, they're telling you to focus on your breath. Link this breath to the next one, which links to the next one, to the next one. And for maybe, if you're able to follow their instruction and their guiding, a half hour, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes or so, you're doing the breath coming from the Creator, linked to the next breath that comes to the Creator, linked to the next breath that comes to the Creator. So all of your breath for the past 60 minutes, you're consciously thinking of your connection to Creator. I would say in the world, yoga is probably one of the best practices because you're linking your thought of accepting the breath that I inhale coming from the Creator. So you're starting to develop and nurture the divine part of you, connecting with the Creator, which is the source of all. And you're becoming consciously aware of this feeling that becomes inside of your body by this nurturing of this connection, where you, your divine self, and you're conscious of your mind and your emotions, your body. It's kind of along for the ride, but the driver, the divine self, is going in and making connection with the Creator each breath. So even if the Creator is billions of light years away on some level, Creator is also right here in the space. It's in everything. If I can wrap my mind around the concept of accepting each breath from the Creator, each breath that I take, and I do that for an hour, and then I stay in that last pose of Shavasana, the corpse pose, and lying. I know every time I do yoga, I'm in a blissful state. My body's feeling really cool, and it's easy for me to let go of the physical world. All of my thoughts dissolve, and I just melt right into the floor, and I hang out in bliss. I would say yoga, a good instructor, and a good attitude about it, a willingness to really allow the instructor to take you through the postures and move you through that, and following your breath. That daily practice, 1 hour in 24. If you really look at yourself in your life, most people are not doing that. But if you practice 2 hours in 24, 3 or 4, at the end of a week you get 28 hours, 30 hours a week. At the end of 50 weeks you get 150, 200, 1,500 or something, some bigger number of you consciously taking time out. You asked me about how can I use Ho'oponopono? I don't know about using Ho'oponopono, but the actual spiritual practice is really important because there's a part of us that is divine. That part has so much wisdom. And my divine self is uniquely different from yours and everyone else who's watching this presentation. We are all special and unique. And the divine self really does know. You know, like I said, the original inhabitants of these islands, the Menehune, they were kind to each other and loving. That's our basic nature. That's one of our potential realities that we can choose to live. But we don't really see it much around us in our world outside because something happened somewhere back when. And now people are learning to be mean to each other, on many levels. So getting back to what I can do, what anyone can do in practicing and consciously watching this connection of my divine self with the Creator that created everything. And my subconscious part is remembering it too. It's like some deep message somewhere. Somebody whispered to you, and you remember deep in your heart somewhere there's something that rings so true about what Mark is saying to us right now. What can I do? Then I can find that if I can find this connection here and make this connection, and I consciously, subconsciously, and witnessing that, then I can take this part of being and I can embrace that side. So my divine self becomes with me. And then my energy field, when it comes to me and is with me, feels comfortable enough to actually be inside my body with me, my aura will expand. The aura around my head will just vibrate gold. And that's why they show Buddha and Christ always having that golden halo or ring around them, because they were able to take that divine self from up whatever it seems to reside above us. There's a sense of that, where the conscious self and the lower self, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, are in this physical reality. Above it is the higher conscious, or the divine self. When that part can feel and invited to become part of my existence, my divine self coming and being with me, then I will have achieved what Morna was trying to teach us in the self-identity of the I. Father, the higher self; Mother, the conscious; Son is one, subconscious. The three part as one, energized. I, Mark Saito, wish to do Ho'oponopono. So now my divine self is working with every part of me, and we're going to move forward to transform the energy in this room, to sever all the energetic cords that are tying anything that's keeping it bound here, and help release it and transform it and send it to the light. So the prayer starts out, as far as Ho'oponopono and the prayer itself, it says in the beginning, divine creators, to identify that source. Father, Mother, Son is one. The divine self, my conscious self, and my subconscious self as one. I, and then you would state your name, wish to do Ho'oponopono. With the power that comes to me from God, I want to actually take some time and make everything perfect between myself and the energy in this building, this land, whatever is going on, wherever the calamity is. Transform the energy in the space where maybe the plane crashed and many people got hurt from that. In a war zone, the many wars that have been fought all over the planet. Go to that space, the base where they did the bombing in Boston, or the Trade Center, where many people died, and thousands of people affected. The Trade Center bombing affected everybody on the planet. When Fukushima nuclear reactor went off and the tidal wave or tsunami came to Japan, the whole world watched in ultimate shock. Like, oh shit, look at what the water's doing. The boats are moving, everything is moving, my God. So the whole world will watch that. The Western world at least had a chance to see that on TV again and again. And it affected us deeply. We're like, oh, what can we do? Many people had that feeling in their own hearts, and man, there's something I could do to go help those people, man. My God. And when they had the big earthquake and tsunami down in below India, by Indonesia or something like that. Yeah, Sri Lanka. And it affected Bali, and all that whole area got affected. Many people around the world went to go help out. So there is a part of us that can
feel sad or sorry by something, and also are willing to go jump in. But getting back to the individual, each one of us individually, I think for in the West, because we don't even really think about that in our daily life, that we have a divine self and that can be something that I would want to develop, just not something I'm aware of. So that's one of the things I would say to answer your question about how can I use Ho'oponopono. Within that, it has all the components needed to take and transform anything negative and help it become positive.
It's good.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is very beautiful, peaceful, and somehow I find myself at more calm and rest when around nature and trees and mountains, and there's a certain sort of energy for this time of the day, but we usually don't tap into it because
One of the things that separates Hawaii from other parts of the world, and it's true for many of the Polynesian islands, their heiau, their temples, are built in such a way that it's open to nature. It can get to a point where it's raining, so on this heiau, so the Hawaiian temples are always out and open. This is a healing temple. If we had the time, we could visit some of the other temples. Some of them weren't healing temples. There were others that were built for actually making and strategizing and planning and training for war. So with the migration of those warriors from the South Islands to the islands, it changed Hawaii. This is back around 1100 or so AD when they came from the South. They brought, they separated the classes of people, made a ruling class. The ali'i were the chiefs. And they were descendants of gods coming down, mating with humans, and their children were offspring, were descendants of the gods. So they became the ali'i, or the chiefs. The regular people were the commoners, the maka'ainana, and then they had the kahuna class. Those that were experts at what they were doing. And before that, the people lived here. They didn't have kahuna. There was no ali'i. There were no commoners. Everybody was the same. They didn't need cell phone, by the way. They had the coconut wireless, and everybody had to pay 2 coconuts every month or something like that. So they could communicate with each other, very much like the Aborigines in Australia. There are many stories and talking about their ability to talk to each other without having cell phones. The old Hawaiians that lived on these islands, the Menehune people, they could talk to each other just in their own mind.
And you call that the coconut wireless?
The coconut wireless. By the way, I'm going to trademark that one. It's on film right now. I got it. I claim dibs to the coconut wireless. We're all connected. It's just learning how to communicate that way. You can, I can, we can. We do that by getting a feeling and then somebody call. Yeah, I was just thinking about you. If that happens every now and again. Last night the intuition said, no, let them go. They're going to find their own way. You asked me to stay with dinner, and I said, I follow my intuition every time. Every time. And you guys found Ramsey. Right? If this doesn't, not magical, I don't know what can be. If he was here, we'd both be hugging and laughing. And he'd tell one side and I would tell one side. The best would be if we had the two of us together. And probably Dr. Hewlin, who I've never met him, I would look forward to meeting him. We all came from that same teacher. We all learned different things. Took what she taught us and applied it a little bit differently. I'm absolutely fascinated by Dr. Hewlin's story, Joe Vitale's book, Zero Limits. And reading that, okay, that's something I haven't really thought much about. When someone like Tommy or Sue or Mary or John comes to see me for a session, I know I'm developed the ability to work with them, to actually sit with that person, listen to their concern, using hypnosis and helping them to quiet their conscious mind so we can access the information in their subconscious and work to resolve that. I've worked many, many times with hundreds, thousands of people and learned many things, and yet I was fascinated by what Dr. Hewlin has been able to do and look forward to meeting him and working with him. So after reading the book and taking that and looking around me and saying, okay, the whole world outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside. So right now around us is raining really hard. It's kind of cold and dreary on some level. But it's like Western world would say, it's a cold, wet day. No good. The one people say, oh, wow, it's raining. Fantastic. Heaven is mating with earth, and the water from heaven is flowing to the earth, giving the earth a chance to grow again. So they want to have that. They want to see the rain coming.
So based on your experiences, all of this exists. Heaven, earth, middle plane, souls that are caught in infinite, roaming around the globe, parallel universes. All of our creator is still one.
We're all having an incredible experience. Even other dimensional beings that are putting probes in humans, that because of their technology, they're vibrating in such a way that all of our scientific awareness at this moment cannot actually pick up and track these energetic implants that they're putting in people. And yet the people still talk about, there's something in my head. I can feel it like buzzing. CAT scans, whatever, can't detect anything. But in working with them, the subconscious mind, following that energetic coconut wilder stuff and talking to these energetic beings that seem more like scientists initially, and connecting beyond that and beyond that. If our scientists want to take and cut open some animal and stick a probe in it and see where it goes and how deep it swims and stuff, or maybe they're going to attach a suction cup with a camera to the humpback whale and see how deep it goes or whatever. If we're as scientists doing those two animals, then it's possible that other beings can come in and do something to us humans. And the ones that I've run into, mostly they're trying to figure out emotions. When in the fifth dimension, sixth dimension of reality, I told you before, they don't have emotions, so they don't know why we can get so sad or angry and even loving. They don't truly understand the experience of loving as an emotion. They don't have a body that can understand that. So they're tracking, reading, picking up information to help it make it compute. And like I said to you before, when I run into that, not very often, but when I have, it seems they're very almost robotic. That does not compute. You cannot be talking to me, but I am. No, you cannot do that, but we are. We cannot be talking. I'm talking to you. Take me to your leader. I want to find out your boss. Why are you guys doing this? Beatist. You call scientists. Take me to somebody. I want to find out what's going on. Why are you guys putting probes in people? What are you trying to find? And, really innocently following that line and just keep following to the end. Kind of like there's a character, he doesn't see him too much on the movies, on the TV anymore, Columbo, the detective guy who chews on a cigar. Once he latches onto the guy who's really the bad guy in that series, he doesn't let him go. He'll always keep coming back at him. By the way, and one more thing, let me ask you. And it's like, finally the guy gives up, says, okay, I did it, I give up. So I'm kind of like that, where I'm going to go wherever I need to go, to talk to whoever I need to talk to find out why they're doing this. Get to the root of the cause. What's causing this to happen? Why are you causing this woman such stress in her life? What's up with that? We cannot be talking. We are talking. What's going on? Who's your boss? Let me talk to your boss. We cannot be talking. We're talking. I want to get to your boss, and I don't let it go. That's one of the things about my style of working. Everybody has their own different way. I will go to wherever I need to go to and talk to whoever I need to talk to sit down and work this out. Get back to the point where John or Sue or Mary or whoever can get their life back, can release whatever is causing it, if it's past life memories, whatever it is. Finding a part of them that has been lost. I worked with a woman that got into an auto accident, head-on collision, And in that collision, she had 84 fractures, bones in her body. All the major bones were broken. She ran head-on into a motorcycle guy. He was going to the military base in Leyte, and he decided to pass a big truck, and as soon as he pulled out on the oncoming traffic, it was a head-on collision. He died instantly, and she had 84 fractures. When the firemen pulled her out of the car, they thought she was dead. But they could detect a heartbeat, so they put her in a pressurized suit to up her blood pressure. And they medevaced her to the hospital by him. A year and a half later, I was working with her, and she had 5 children. And their biggest complaint from the kids, some of them were in high school, is that their mom, her body was there, but their mom wasn't, the one who was laughing and cooking for them and taking them to all the different things. She wasn't. So it took us a couple sessions to find different parts of her that had broken off, if you will, fractured away. In Hawaiian culture, we would say uhane hele, a part of her spirit left. Uhane mai, bringing that part back. And the Native Americans would call it soul retrieval. It took 3 sessions, and we were able to find parts of her that were lost in that head-on collision and bring it back to her. So the 4th time she came to see me, she was beautiful, dressed in a business suit and ready to go in for a job interview. She lived on another island. She was over here interviewing for a job up at the military base, coming down from the military base to go to the airport. The soldier going back to the base, they had the head-on collision. So all of this was covered by the military. They kind of took a personal interest to make sure that she was getting better. So they were covering the cost of her sessions to come and see me. And it took 3 sessions, but she did really good, which if she didn't work with me, she would probably need to work with someone like me that knew that intuitively that some part of her was wrong, not there, and had a way to work to find that and bring it back. Soul retrieval. Soul retrieval, past lives, and releasing entities. Those are the 3 biggest calamities that cause disharmony in the spirit.
I used DMT before.
What is that?
Dimethyltryptamine. Are you familiar with?
It's some kind of alter your state reality.
Yeah. And I had an experience where there was some tubes that came up and they went into my nose. And they were of an extraterrestrial origin. There was a spiritual entity that I was communicating with telepathically. And I never knew what that was about. And they told me that usually people don't let them go that far. That it'll start to come up before they'll pull themselves out of the hallucination, out of the,
Experience, the trance state that they're in.
yeah. And I've had a lot of transcendental experiences with ayahuasca. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Not myself in having taken, only in having heard many people talk about ayahuasca. Why we don't have that kind of plant that grows here that kind of can alter us that much? We have one called ava. It's a rooted plant. Wish I knew the English name for it. But they take the root and they grind the root and they drink that, and it becomes. The women used to chew the root in their mouth and spit into the bowl, and that bowl, they keep spitting, they mix it with fresh water and they make the drink, they let it ferment and they drink that, and it would cause them to go low. Kind of like the drunk experience. That was the only thing we have in the Hawaiian Islands, and many of the islands in Polynesia have that ava root, ava ceremony. So nowadays it's a medicinal thing. They can find it, you can get, and it's ground to a fine powder. It's kind of like a very fine beach sand, really fine, and they mix it with water and drink it, and it'll cause you to be numb. So when the ladies in the old days, when they're chewing on it, their tongue and their gums and everything in their mouth would feel numb. And so ava. So we don't have ayahuasca or anything like that.
Actually,
we have Kona Gold and Maui Waui. That's more recent imports.
Terrence McKenna, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he actually has an estate here in Hawaii where he grows the bikapi vine and the chacruna leaf, which are the elements used for ayahuasca.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not
Probably
sure.
going to be really good.
Yeah.
Planets are real fertile. The volcanic rock, real fertile soil, and we get enough rain to encourage the plants to grow. Enough sun and rain.
There is something there. I never personally experimented with any of this, and ayahuasca was my first experience. And my whole thing was, it's coming from nature. It's a wine and leaf. There's no chemicals. How bad it could be, I haven't tried. So I ended up trying the liquid portion, and first time, you purge, and that's when you start actually, you're present, which was very unusual for me, because in my mind, you've seen enough movies talking about you're just gonna go crazy and you're tripping and stuff like that, but I was present, and yet this was all over the place, including the fact that I'm laying there on the couch, still present of my surroundings, my awareness and everything, and I literally felt the presence of somebody holding my head and gently moving me left and right and telling me, let it go, let it go. And then my hands were like this or something, and it asked me to straighten everything out and relax. Until this day, when I sleep at night, if I'm like something like, just normal position like this, I just open it up and just, my sleeping posture has changed since then. And I also felt this burst of light while I was laying on the couch come out of here up till this far, almost felt like a soul coming out this far, although I was still there. And it just beautiful blue light, and it just went back in. And then this thin veil of curtain that starts moving, and you see that there's something in front of your eyes that filters what you see in the world. And just very, very different. I mean, thoughts were going one after another. Memories where ancestors, my grandparents came through, and a lot of this was very first time an experience for me. And since then, we went to Peru last year, and we tried it again in presence of a shaman, and nothing happened. All I did was puke. So, but first time, whatever that experience was, it's changed a part of me a little bit.
Amazing. I haven't had any opportunity to take it. I probably would, just to find out.
Yeah, it's he ended up ordering it, and it's funny thing is, all the websites we found that one or the other ingredient was banned by USDA, chacruna leaves or coffee wine. No place in United States you can find, and there were websites one after another stating that they were shut down because of this ingredient, so they were not allowed to sell it together, or government was actively after that for some reason. So eventually found a place in Peru, and they ended up shipping a bottle of it under catnip. And Robert made me familiar with this, and again, never tried anything, not even marijuana, so it was very foreign to me. I did not have much expectations, but my first experience, there was something there. There is something there that it's just hard to describe. And followed by that, I did it twice. I just haven't gone back to the same experience. So, but it was an interesting experience.
Great.
You seem like the appropriate person to share some of the stuff with because you're such a mystical person.
What does that mean? You know what? I feel like a regular guy. Honestly, take a shower, put my clothes on probably the same way you do, one leg at a time.
I think you deal with more interdimensional beings at a regular basis.
There's level of knowledge, there's level of experience, there's aura about it, there's a calmness about you. And I believe with this past life, with internet and cell phones and stuff like that, it's hard to achieve that.
I would say, like I said a little earlier, practicing yoga, or maybe Tai Chi, whichever way you're drawn to, that kind of practice where you're using your body and breath to gain more strength, flexibility, whatever you're looking for. And also using your mind where you're not thinking of work, you're just listening to the sensei or your yoga teacher who's just working you through your postures, working the energy, moving the energy from that. bringing it down, thinking about what's really in that moment, not work or something in the past or what's coming later in the future. The more you can practice that, the more you'll find you grow in leaps and bounds, and that ability to be confident, be present, not be so easily to be unbalanced or perturbed or upset, I guess. Also, one of the things that happens, because we learn from each other, the greatest thing that happens amongst us is a time when we can feel less than, feel like, oh, the government did this to me, feel like I've been victimized or someone just did something to me and I'm on the short end of the stick. I'm on the receiving like punishment or a bill that I don't think I need or something. I didn't do this, I didn't do it. Why are you blaming me? Blaming victims, bad guys, heroes. I call it the dramas. People do drama and they get involved. Do you know what so-and-so did to me today? Guess what they just did to me today? And people get hooked into other people's drama. All of the very popular movies is usually a good guy, a bad guy, and a victim, someone who's got abused. And that's what happens around us. If you live your life never coming out of that cycle, I don't know that you'll ever get it. Because in the sense of the good guy, the bad guy, and the victim, if you follow it around, the good guy actually will become a bad guy, and the victim will become a bad guy. They kind of switch roles around. Study that often enough, you'll see it. But if you don't step out of the game and start to pursue yoga, pursue learning more about your divine self, and allowing that to be a part of your reality, about your relationship with the Creator, if you don't develop it throughout your life, so when you get to the end of the physical life and your physical body's going to die and become part of the elements of the earth again, you can let go of that in a very peaceful way, not afraid, and just step right into the next part of your transition, ascend into heaven, be with the energetic beings that are in heaven, the teachers that are up there, the working ancestral beings, angels, and sit with them and smile with them and say, all right, look back at life and see what you've done. But if you just do drama, that's one part of living life. It's not bad. It's just one way of living life. If you can learn to embrace spiritual life, you think more about that, I believe that you'll start to move at a different level so that incarnating into the physical world, coming back and doing earth school, you can actually graduate. And you don't have to come back and do earth school. Or if you come back, you come in more as a teacher. And like Jesus did, to show everybody that I'm not any better than you. I'm like you. What I can do, you can do too. But he came to teach us how to be in a human, divine in a human body.
Do you feel like you may be in your last incarnation?
I don't know about that. I'm actually loving life. And some people are not loving it so much, in the sense that who would want to do that again? Live another life like this? Some people would never choose that again, and yet when they go up, they do, and they come back again. I've learned so much. I don't know about last incarnation. It sounds so final. I love where I am. I actually have had many experiences of being out of my body and other dimensional realities, having my angel guardians take me and show me things. I realized that some places in my incarnations I lived on another planet within the Pleiades systems, and I have family from the back there. I chose to come to the earth plane and be on the earth plane for the transition that the earth is going to go through, moving from the dark ages into the light ages, into a time when people are peaceful with each other.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's where we are right now. We're right at the verge, and I cannot change everybody, but I can work diligently on working inside me. Listening to Dr. Hewlin's words and Joe Vitale and their conversations in that book reminds me again and again that even though I want to look at the whole world and get the whole world to change, I really can only work on it inside of me. So I would say that this golden age that we are in right now, taking time out every day, if I take time out every day to practice what I know in my forms, Tai Chi, Bagua, and Yoga, the more I practice there, the more I say the simple lines that Dr. Hugh Lin says, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And on many levels, say it again and again. When I'm driving in traffic and the lights are turning red and there's a whole bunch of cars and I need to be someplace, I look at the light and I think to myself those thoughts. And eventually, all of a sudden, things open up and the long line became everybody's flowing and nobody's turning and nobody's stopping anymore. And okay. So in some practical sense, it reduces the stress by saying those words. That part of me that knows that I need to be somewhere at a certain time and says, okay. So I find when I'm practicing living in the now, doing my dance, practicing the forms, everything works. I get out, there's like green lights. Everywhere I go, there's a green light. But it usually takes us 15 minutes. I can get there in 5. Many times people look at me and I'll drive across town. They said, we were just talking to you. You were on the other side of town. What did you do, speed or something? I said, no. I just relaxed and the lights all turned green. They're like, yeah, right. But people know there's a certain wisdom about driving in traffic, about living life, and about just being present. Like last night, knowing that letting you guys go, you would be in good hands. I had no idea it would be Ramsey, but you folks are in good hands, weren't you? Yeah. So I learned to let go. I was tempted. I thought, no, they said, no, you need to go. So I left. You guys are in good hands, and we're back. So it's really nice to move like that. I don't know how you guys, you must be like you're on some kind of magical carpet ride or something like that.
Well, that's life for us.
It's a very good lessons, life lessons, and you know, especially you do get caught up in the lot of physical pleasures, and you know, one of the things we have been discussing is people around us, you know, do we have meaningful connections? Is it a lot more airheadedness, conversations, or, you know, how do we enrich our life? And a lot of this, but particularly for me, he's been very well versed for a couple of years, but I still might see just dipping my feet belly into this subject matter and start to learn. And spending a couple of hours yesterday with you, it's been very different. You know, still going through all the information, and you know, it's very meaningful. It's resonating with me. I'm understanding it and be able to comprehend it and collect it. And to me, that's very powerful. And usually I always second guess things. You know, my analytical left brain is like, is that really true, or is there something else? You know, constantly challenging the beliefs. So it's a lot of the answers are coming through. So
Even though there's a part that wants to challenge it, still the answers
yes.
are coming through.
Yes.
You're learning a really fascinating way. Most people don't realize that they can actually take that challenging mind or that judgmental self and just kind of let it be background noise. Earlier this morning we had a couple of chickens that were clucking and crowing and stuff like that. Let it be in the background. The cars that have been coming and going, the guy that came through to clean up and haul the trash away. Let it be the background and focus on what's important. But most people in our Western world don't even know how to focus on what's important, like the intuitive messages that come through. There's an incredible little video put out by a company called Heart Math. I think you can look at heartmath.com or something. That little video that they have with really great visual presentations about what happens to the heart's energy and how it links with the mind, can connect me to the universe above. When people connect and communicate, then they're in that right spirit of things, how the energy flows. So when you can get that judgmental part, the part that wants to question everything, and just get it to put it on the side and let it be there, but focus more intentionally on what the information is coming through your intuitive self. intuitively you get. Yesterday I got real clear. I need to be with you guys last night. Let them go, they'll be fine. That's what they said to me, and you saw me leave pretty quickly. I says, no, like, guys, I gotta get going. Fine. That's my, and then he's gone moment. Wow, what was that? He's gone. Okay. Guess we're on our own, and then everything fell into place. And so I've learned to trust that more than anything else. There was a part of me that I could watch it and go to dinner. I was coming up with different restaurants we could have gone to. Actually, we could have gone and we may have still made the connection with Ramsey. We would be laughing and hugging each other and saying, good to be with you. I'm not saying it's just Ramsey and I. There are other great teachers here now. But right now, today, yesterday, it is Ramsey and I that have showed up to be with you for your journey.
Yeah.
So, any other questions about Ho'oponopono you want to talk about here? Or you want to go?
Well, I mean, between Ramsey and you, I mean, we've gotten a really good conceptual understanding, and I just enjoy listening to you guys extrapolate and continue to discuss your experiences, its potential, and its
I
meaning
would say
for
the
us.
whole world needs to do Ho'oponopono. Do some house cleaning on the inside. Kind of set up the logical thinking mind that wants to question everything. Put it, let it be there, but realize that it's really operating in a very small circle relative to all the information that can come through you, the potential to do out-of-body experiences and have interdimensional travel abilities and develop our minds and our bodies like in yoga. Just listen, okay? The instructor said do this. I'm in warrior pose. I rotate up. Oh, yeah. Follow my breath, link each breath. Okay. So I would say that you can do that. Put that conscious mind in that perspective. Let it do what it's designed to do, but also don't give it the power that it demanded, which is really the ego self that's going to take control of things, throttle it back, and you get more into the driver's seat, hook up to the coconut wireless, and make your decisions based on what you're getting from your intuition. You guys seem to have been doing that. I don't know what happened for you in the Philippines and where else your journey has taken you, but you seem to be right in the swing of things.
I think he knows his life purpose. I think at this point he's passionate about his subject matter and spreading the word and helping as many people. A part of me almost, I won't say jealous, but a part of me feels lost compared to him that yes, I have a great job and everything, but to me we live in the middle of downtown, which is concrete jungle. I find myself belong when I'm in an environment like this. And yes, my job is great, I like it, but necessarily doesn't feel that I found the life purpose. That is this what I'm supposed to do the rest of my life? It's not there.
Tell me your name again, your full name.
Neal, Neal, Balar, Balar.
So Balar is your
Last name.
From your Indian heritage?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you don't have a sense of your purpose yet?
I don't think I focused on finding it. I'm doing what's you're supposed to go to school, you're supposed to get a great job, you're supposed to move forward. Part of me almost thinks that meeting Robert, there's something there that's drawing me back to where I need to be and not just be so much on the coming from the culture where everybody's supposed to be doctors and engineers. I've been very career focused, and I'm at a point where it's a great career, everything is good, but is that what I want to do for the rest of the life? It doesn't seem right.
What do you do, by the way? What is your career?
So I analyze data and analytics like business intelligence for a lot of, I work for an advertising marketing company, and a lot of marketing campaigns, analyzing the effects of that based on the data that's collected, and a lot of database development and stuff. That's what my team does, and I'm pretty hands-on in everything that my team is able to do.
Were you able to take a break from work to go travel like this?
Yes. It's in a way it's not stress free. Good company and everything. but still something, this is, I feel like, where I belong. And we talked about it. I'm like, I need to find a place where, close to mountains and lakes and nature and stuff like that. And that feeling is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
America's got such beautiful country all over the place. I've been to Sedona, Arizona, and up to Flagstaff, and many parts of California, Yosemite. I mean, it has beautiful country all across. And then India, Japan, China. My God, we could spend our whole life just traveling to great places and hanging with people. Maybe you guys can do that. You can be his sidekick and carry his cameras or something and go sit out with Robert and go, you know how they do all these different travel channels? Go sit with the spiritual teachers of the world. The message to the world is spirit. Some people get it, but a lot of people, in general, I would say the mainstream hasn't gotten it yet. Because if they do get it, the world would be way more peaceful. So that's the drum to beat. Spirit, learning more about our divine nature, divine self, embracing that in daily life in some level each day, remembering that moment. I'm a divine being. I have unlimited power. I can go anywhere I want to go and do anything I want to do. I choose to spend these few moments with Robert and with Neil. And all I got to do is show up and be me. Be myself. And in the process of being me, all the work that I've done to be where I am right now helps you, helps others that are listening, watching. That's all I got to do is be me. Robert's just being Robert. You got to figure out who Neil is, huh? But you already know. You've just said it a couple of times. Being outside. Get away from the concrete buildings. That job, you went and you're successful there. But maybe not quite what you're here to do this time. Can you imagine if you guys became the two people that, like the kid that created Google in the Western world, that actually get the big message out? People like Joe Vitale in his book are doing a great job. Dr. Hugh Lin is doing Dr. Hugh Lin's thing. You guys are doing your thing. You guys can just go around and sit and meet with all people like myself and Ramsey. Watch us do the work. Be a part of it. Let the world see, and the world says, hey, what are those guys doing over there? Oh, that looks interesting. Get it up on YouTube and get it out to the world. That's fantastic. That's myself, I'm not that good at marketing. I do know that's what I need to do. But I rather just, on many levels, be myself and go in and do the work. Doing the massage with people last night, having a great time. Working along some really great massage therapists and watching their energy drain and be with them, help them transform the energy without them going in. And they feel better. And I'm like, oh, I feel better, thanks. What did you? Oh, I don't know. And working with people and helping get better, that's why I am here. Help them dissolve the stresses and transform it and move on.
It's good.
Good?
You do a good job.
Yeah.
Tell us about your bowl.
Oh, the bowl. It's just a bowl. This is typical how the one people did. If they needed to carry like water or liquid type things, they just made bowls. This is more modern day bowl, but they would use gourds most of the time. You know what a gourd is?
Yeah, like a pumpkin sort of,
Yeah.
any nut variety
And they
of
would
that.
hollow them out, and they had a kind of like a container where they could carry water. That was more common. Making a bowl required a lot of time, so lately in the past many 20, 30, 40 years, making bowls is quite common amongst people. So this is just a bowl.
Oh,
Nothing special.
just a bowl.
Regular bowl.
Pono.
Yeah, just a regular bowl.
It's good.
What else can I do to answer you, my friend?
Well, I think the questions of how we can help ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically through Ho'oponopono have been answered. What I guess I'm still left curious about are any unspoken or unaddressed Hawaiian healing modalities, other techniques, other philosophies, things that people aren't currently exposed to, other than Zero Limits coming out, I think there still remains other things that haven't come out. And I'm kind of curious about what other secrets or mysteries that could be revealed that could help humanity, myself included, by having those things shared.
To answer your question, it's kind of a big question. One of the things he's written about in his book, he talks about taking responsibility for my life and everything that happens, and realize on some level or many levels I create my reality. This day I end up in a car accident. On some level I was consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously creating that and accepting that, not being a victim and say, why did you run into me? I'm realizing that first and foremost, are you okay? The other person that's involved in the accident, everybody's okay. Let's just figure it out. We got to do our insurance things. The police came to make a report. Realizing that I created this through learning what I learned from that, rather than being in a victim mode, quickly stepping to the next level and accepting responsibility for creating that. And what am I learning from that? I think one of the greatest things that we all can learn as we grow more spiritual is to realize that I create everything and I'm not a victim here. What am I learning as a result of the calamity that happened today or yesterday or last week? When I get back in my body, if I got really physically hurt and been unconscious for a while, wake up and say, okay, where am I? Oh, okay, back in my body. Oh, this body's hurt. One of the things that is really fascinating is to get that this body that I'm in is not really who I am. Who I am really is the more the divine self. That's an important thing to realize. There's a spiritual being that's inside this body. That body is me. I'm the spiritual being. This is my body. Kind of like the vehicle over there. I get in the vehicle and I drive it and I'm responsible for it. I pay the license, insurance, and things like that. Take care of it. That's my vehicle. This is my body. How I take care and nurture this body is how I take care and nurture this body. I either do a good job at it or not a good job. However, I am not this body. At some point, this body will physically die, and I can ascend and move back on, move on in my own transition and my own progression. To realize that I'm not this body, most people in the Western world don't have a clue. They just get that this is who I am. This is how I show up in the world, and this is who I am. I would say to the Western world, you're not your body. You're bigger than that. And learning how to move beyond just that thought. We've talked and left some breadcrumbs and pieces like the conscious mind, the logical thinking mind that wants to control everything and analyze everything and come up with a conclusion as to why that should make sense. That doesn't make sense, but I'm going to go with it anyway. To learn how to use intuition more. Learn to trust and tap into the coconut wireless. Realize that we're not really in this all by ourselves. A lot of times people can get in such a quiet and small space, pull back, and they only live within their own space. Some people actually don't get out of their home. They just live at home. They have groceries delivered. Everything comes to them. They access outside technology by using technology, computers or something, but they don't actually interact with people anymore. That's getting a little bit not the right direction, I would say. Getting out and jumping in the sea of life and jumping in and swimming with people and being with people is good on many levels, but for some people who, especially they're very sensitive, empathic, and their feelings can become impacted by other people's thoughts, it's not easy for them. They would choose to seclude themselves, put up big shields, big auras. Many times they'll gain excess weight to try to protect themselves from other people's thoughts and feelings. So life and living life here on Earth School or Life School can be a challenge for many people. And I would say to those people learning more about the spiritual nature and the spiritual side, who the essence of them are, the divine self, the part that will live on past physical death, is important at this point in life. And the more of us that can achieve that, and actually realizing that my body functions by habits. How it eats, how it sleeps, the fluids that I want to drink, water or special teas or whatever. I have a habit. And to look at the habits that I have and adjust my habits a little bit so it makes it more nurturing and healthy for my body, including practicing yoga or Tai Chi, something like that, eating more healthy. Those are things that would be good for everyone. And then including within their practice, not so much pumping iron and stuff like that. Many in the West, intensely training yourself to knock the lights out of people. That's good on some level. You can gain fame and notoriety and achieve that part of us that can be very assertive and aggressive. That's good for a certain age limit, and then after that you start to turn it around and say, maybe that's not where I need to be expressing myself. One of the things that's missing in, I would say, in the MMA world is if there's only fire and destruction, where's the water and the peace and the quiet? At what point do you ever nurture that? When I watch it on TV and I listen to my young sons and they want to watch TV and talk about the fight and this and that, I'm with them. I don't want to judge them at all. But I just wonder, and I look inside there, is there ever any moment when they're peaceful? When the old warriors, the older guys that are no longer young enough to compete, how are they? And I see that a lot in the professional sports world, like basketball and football in the West here. They're pretty broken up and busted. Past about 35 in the professional sports world, and by the time they're 40, 45, they're limping and really quite busted. There's a few of them that make it beyond that and somehow get through. Maybe they've learned something, like maybe Michael Jordan, some of the other guys that are become newscasters and talking about their professional sports, like Shaq and Charles Barkley and others like that, and they're talking about the game. But if they don't include in a time of their physical expression, a time when they sit in stillness and quiet meditation, then I would say that that's incomplete. And this is speaking more from a spiritual point of view. So if I train and I huff and I puff and I get that incredible expansion of power, and I just take a shower and kind of let it fall away, don't take all of that energy and do something with it. It'll just quiet down, go take a shower, come out. Maybe I'll still be perspiring because my body's still generating heat. But get dressed and move on, and never take a moment to sit in stillness. That is what's missing in our life. People don't realize that the quiet stillness is something to actually develop and nurture. Just sitting in quiet stillness. And contemplating that. Because what happens on an energetic level, when your aura is expanded, within your auric field there's a lot of heat generated from all the effort that you put forward in moving your mind and your muscles, competing and training your body. Then you take the next few moments, 20 minutes or half hour, just sit in stillness. That huge auric field will start to compress back down. Your body heat, the heart pumping, your breathing mechanisms will start slowing down. On the physical world, everything looks like it's getting smaller and compressing. If you hold your mind in stillness and it just tick-tock goes forward, you're holding stillness, and hold that stillness. On the inner realm, if you're able to achieve a quiet mind, you'll get to a point where you lose touch with your physical body, although it's in sitting in posture or perfect meditation. You lose touch with your physical body, and you start to feel like you're floating. Keep holding stillness and think no thoughts. The floating feeling will feel like, after a while, a sense of hovering and gentle, a sense of drifting and floating like this. No sense of direction. And you keep holding your mind in stillness, and all of a sudden, it'll, in a realm where you're in that stillness, will feel quite expansive. It's almost as if you're hovering over a sea, an ocean, and no matter how far you can put your attention, it seems vast in all directions. Sometimes called the sea of consciousness by some others who've understood that reality. Once you stay there long enough, if you have no agenda, nowhere to go, nowhere to be, there's a part of you that will go back to the divine self. That's when you and the divine self, your higher self, can become one. When you and your divine self have become one, if you keep holding stillness, collectively, you'll go away with the Creator. There's a time when you as your divine self, as one, can be with the Creator. When you do that, and you sit with your Creator, so much energy hits your consciousness. Without trying, this is just a resultant, an effect. It permeates every part of your consciousness that relates back to your body. So your body's getting impacted by this, your bones, your muscles, your nervous system, your blood. So much so that when you wake up again, you come back to wide awake state. The inner realm that had incredibly expanded to the farthest reaches of the universe, and your relationship to being one with your Creator, such a profound effect that the inner world starts to compress down and you wake up to the physical world. Those watching you come back from that deep meditation will watch, and all of a sudden there'll be a golden halo around your head without trying. You don't try to make the golden halo. And your aura will, when you come up to the surface, it's like the image of a ripple in the pond. And your aura will expand. And you'll be connected to all things. Intuition will be 1,000% vibrating. So you took that potential of all the exercise you did for hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, and working out intensely, and you hold yourself in stillness. Again, you have to do nothing else but just sit quietly in stillness. Probably shield your body, ground it, connect to heaven, so nothing can come into your energy field. And then go in stillness. You don't have to think about that anymore. Just hold your mind quietly. Expansion on the outside leads to compression of the outside, and on the inside it expands. Something's always compressing down, and something else is expanding. In Tai Chi they call it yin yang forms. The time when one goes above the other. And then when the inside world, when you come back to wide awake consciousness, starts to compress down, you lose touch of the expansion. You come back up to the surface. On the outside, your aura will expand.
Do you have you ever had a vision of the future? Of maybe of humanity, of your own personal circumstance, or for your meditation?
I have some wishes, some earthly wishes, that people can be kind to each other and take care of each other. You and I are brothers, and we take care. I'll do everything I can to support you in what you're doing, and I agree with you. I do that with the people that I work with at work, the men and the women that are therapists, with my boss, with the people who come in the door. I see everyone as a brother or sister, a friend that we haven't met yet. And on some level, it feels good to be with you, that I don't intellectually understand, but it feels good to be with you. Just feels good. And I embrace that. My wish is that the world really does make it, and I believe that it will. The transition into the golden age, on some level it will. That I feel really strongly about. How we do that? I wish that everyone would take a time to learn about stillness, about quieting your mind. The Japanese call it mushin. The rooster is calling ar. The Chinese call it Wu Qi, Wu Ji, quiet mind or empty mind, a time of stillness. In the West, the easiest for us to comprehend and think about the mind being quiet. Achieving that, I don't know, but it's a good thought.
Do you have? Do you subscribe to any known philosophy which you feel most succinctly expresses how the spiritual body is composed? Some people may subscribe to a Vedic tradition in order to describe the chakras, and another may a Chinese tradition. Do you?
The Hawaiian tradition talks about hula. The Hawaiian chakra is a little bit different, and I learned that from another kahuna about the heart expanding outwards, coming back into the middle eye, pulling energy down from the crown, and then moving the body in a different, kind of like an infinity motion, like this sign. I don't have any teachings other than what I've learned from other people. I had a Buddhist monk who taught me about life, and I've had many great friends from the Vedic traditions. Learning about Stipachaved and Vedic, Ayurvedic medicines and how to eat, Pitta, something, Kapha, different body styles. I forget already some of that. I really feel more cosmopolitan, I would say. I borrow from this and I borrow from that, and I watch the cooks like Bobby Flay or others that are Iron Chefs or whatever that are borrowing from each other, you know, and learning from each other. I really believe that we're here to share with each other, be who we are. The Hawaiian culture is more about being kind and gentle, and having openness to ourselves. Hawaiian hospitality, if you will. I suspect he probably got that from Ramsey too. I haven't met his, I did meet his wife, but we haven't really had a chance to visit much. But I do love spending time with Ramsey and sharing breath and sharing space with each other. We have a good time.
I regret we didn't have that meeting together.
Everything in its right time.
That's true.
Yeah.
No room for regrets, especially on subject
If you're
matter.
living in the moment, not at all. The people that I worked on last night, they're happy that I showed up and did work with them.
Oh, that, yeah.
Making space for Ramsey to come and be with you folks was a good thing.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, my friends, maybe we head back.
All right.
This is like in 1972 when I was 19. Is meditate. Okay, meditate. It wasn't until I actually went through a class with someone who initiated me into transcendental meditation that I started to understand that. So then they taught me to use a mantra to quiet my mind. And I realized that it wasn't easy to get my mind to stop thinking, stop talking.
Yes.
But there was a point inside here, and it happened, not sure exactly, I don't remember the moment. And it came in spurts here and there, listening to stories of what can happen in meditation. And realizing that there's something called meditation where I actually focus on quieting my mind. Well, there's other things that I can do once I get to a quiet place where I can start to do journey work and consciously put my attention in the direction and connect with someone at a distance and see what's going on with them. It doesn't make sense on some level until you're trying to find someone who's missing, and then connect to the energetic coconut wireless, which we're all part of anyway, and find the missing person. Not logically turning over every stone, looking at cell phone records and, using the cell phone towers to track where the cell phone is now to find the missing person, but actually go inside and connect with the coconut wireless and use intuition to connect with them. And that's not part, on some level, it's not where they have a psychic person come in and say, oh, okay, they touched the knife that was part of what they believe was the murder. They can't find the body, and they'll describe where they can sense or see the body by energetically connecting that way. So actively doing something active, journeying beyond your physical body, is another thing that you can do once you're able to achieve the first one, which is quieting your mind. So in the Huna trainings and workshops that I've done, I work with the people on 4 basic things. The first step is to quiet your mind, stillness. Second step is to ground your body, root it to the earth. Third step is to expand your mind to heaven above and bring your energy from heaven and earth into your body, which it already is part of. You're just reinforcing that. And then telling the subconscious mind or the body to shield itself, which already it's doing it, but you want it to make the shield even stronger and go back into stillness again. Stillness, rooting, shielding, stillness. Once you've done those things, when you hold yourself in stillness, by the way, that's the Aloha Stadium, that's Pearl Harbor in front of us, H1 freeway, and you can see the big jet coming into land at the airport out there. That's where you guys are headed. There's the Arizona Memorial that's kind of straight in front of us, with a little white arch-shaped building. It's actually created like a floating building, sort of, where it's just above the Arizona, the battleship Arizona. Getting back to journey work. So journey work is a bit different. It's actually doing something while you've quieted your mind. And really at that point, it's when you're using all of your intuition, what you feel, what you know, what you hear, and what you can see with your mind's eye. So strongly, the students were practicing with me that came from mystery school. And that man was in Dallas. His good friend and student, they became friends at the training at mystery school. She lived in River Falls, Wisconsin. She would go journey to see him and describe where he was. She described that, and he says, "You're right. I am in my home office." He says, "What's to my left?" And she would describe what she saw in her own mind on his left. And he was like, jaw open, like, whoa. He says, "Okay, I'm looking at the books on my shelves, and I'm looking at the second shelf from the bottom. And I'm looking from my left to right. What's the first book that I'm looking at?" And she would describe it. What's the author? The second book, the third book, the fourth book. And he was like, whoa, this is cool. She was really gifted in seeing. So that's like developing your intuition. She was journeying where she was just quiet, grounded, and shielding better at her home, which was more in a, not mountainous, but more natural setting in River Falls, Wisconsin. She didn't live in a concrete jungle type land, more outside, away from the big city. And she had an incredible ability to see.
So, when one is journeying in a meditative state, whereas you strive to have nothing going on in your mind, now you're doing something.
So it's an active one. In meditation, you're passive and doing nothing. In journey work, you're actually going to use meditation as a way to get in. Do something to set up the right environment for your physical body so your consciousness can travel.
So this is like a shamanic...
absolutely, journey.
Mm-hmm. And in this realm or in this state, you could clear somebody's aura or chakra system potentially, right?
You can do that kind of healing work. You can see what's going on. So healing at a distance is a potential. Basically, like if someone's in an accident and you intuitively get that Mike is hurt right now, there's something wrong with Mike. When I'm driving this vehicle, I would pull this vehicle off the road and park it somewhere that was safe. So I'm not going to be a potential accident for somebody else who's driving on the freeway. So I'd get off the freeway, go park it safe, and then get quiet and go journey and see what's going on with Mike. Now Mike may be in an accident in such a way that he didn't even know he's in an accident. He might be in a coma. So I got to go find Mike. His body's in a hospital in Dallas somewhere, but his spirit is drifting where he was in the accident, which is away from the hospital. It's kind of walking and wandering around where it got hurt.
So would you go, in an instance like that, would you go in communication with the spirit?
Absolutely, go talk to him and say, hey, spark. I had a friend that was in a dive accident. He trained with me in martial arts in Puget Sounds. He was in the U.S. Navy SEALs. They did a night dive where they go from the top boat in the battleship, following the cable down to the submarine, knock on the top. Someone helps unlock the latch. They open the latch and then they go in. They were doing buddy diving. 2 guys sharing one tank. Buddy breathing on the way down. It's so dark they cannot see, so they're just pulling the cable to get themselves down 90 feet underwater. That's the exercise. They're supposed to practice in the daytime so they get familiar with it. Well, their CEO said, you guys are SEALs. You don't need this daytime practice bullshit. You guys are mean, lean, and all fighting machines. So we're just going to do it. What they're supposed to do is the motor and the big turbines in the water, the big propeller that's in the water, is supposed to go under slow speed to keep the tension on the cable. Well, they didn't, because when the seas go up and down, the tension can change. They didn't do that. They're supposed to have a decompression chamber up on the boat. They didn't have that. And they did the night dive. His buddy was deathly afraid of the night exercises, and he had the tank. So his buddy started kicking, went underwater, started kicking, going down the cable, and he held his breath and went down, trying to get past him, pulling frantically to get past him so he could stop him from, he was getting kicked in the face by the fins and stuff. Get a breath of air. He caught 2 breaths of air in the time of going down. His 3rd breath of air, they were on the top of the submarine, knocking away. Then he could feel himself getting kicked in the face. His buddy that had the tank was going back up. Panicked. So he went to go back up too, and the cable had wrapped around his foot and pulled taut. So he was like, holy shit. He got his 3rd breath of air going down 90 feet. He's starting to run out. His body's starting to, his mind is thinking, what the hell am I going to do? He took the dive knife out and he was trying to cut this cable with his dive knife. He said, oh, shit. Last thing he could think to do, he knew that his body was going to breathe in water. They've done it so many times that they understand what happens. They just breathe in the water, they pass out, and they go to black, it's called. So he broke the chemical lights on his vest, and he just let go. Next thing his body naturally did was breathe in seawater. The buddy got up to the top of the water, and they were looking at him and saying, what the hell are you doing up here? Where's Phelps? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? The guys were looking at us saying, oh shit. So they jumped in, they went there, found him. The reason they found him, he wasn't attached to the cable anymore. He kind of drifted off because he had the lights, chemical lights broken on his vest. They got him back up to the surface. They said it was roughly about 5 minutes from when they saw the one on the surface that they were able to get him, bring him back up to the surface. What they're taught to do is say these words, I feel fine. Because if you have an embolism, you cannot make an F sound. So he does remember coughing and spitting, looking up at everybody. And in his mind, he was trying to say, I feel fine, but probably came out gurgling. They took him to the shore. They didn't have the decompression chamber. What was good about it, he was unconscious and not breathing, so the embolism didn't happen. He only had water in his lungs. Took him back to shore. They told him he'd probably never dive again. He'd lose his naval career. Took him about 30 days to get back to full strength. He was doing a lot of Qigong breathing exercises. Wrote a mean letter that actually got tabled somewhere. Saying, what the hell are you guys doing? We did this. We're supposed to practice daytime first. The boat wasn't in a tow. There was no decompression chamber. But anyway, long story about all of this is that when we were training in martial arts, our sensei taught us, sometimes you're going to get into a place where you cannot do anything. Whatever you're facing is too powerful for you and you're going to get overwhelmed. When you get to that point, let go. Imagine yourself going to a campfire and sitting at the campfire. When you're sitting at the campfire, just keep focusing on the flame. So long you can see the flame and it's still burning, you can come back to your physical body. When the flame goes out, that's the sign to tell you to ascend and go back to the light above. Go to heaven. Your physical body is dying. So when I was driving on the freeway here in Hawaii, one day I had this incredible sense that my buddy was in harm. So I pulled off the freeway, got real quiet, got what was going on with him, because I could see him sitting at the fire. So I went and sat with him at the fire. And in my mind, what else came was our sensei came with us. So I saw the three of us sitting at the fire just watching his fire burn. And that's all I focused on. It was about maybe several months later that we actually physically got together again. He came back on leave and he wanted to tell me what he saw. And I told him what I saw. He was crying. He said, "Man, I saw the same thing. When I got to the fire, you came up and then Sensei came up and the three of us were sitting there at the fire." Does that make any sense to you all now? About going out and connecting? So that's what I mean about actually can do something. Thank goodness our sensei taught us about the fire, about being overwhelmed and in over our heads. Never had a clue as to what that would mean.
Wow. So do you do a lot of journey work?
I do. Especially I'm on one of my emails is a message from the mystery school, and many students will ask for assistance and prayers, additional prayers of a loved one or themselves, either working with injuries or some kind of disease or something's going on with them. Being a part of the prayer team to send energy and connect with them and see what's going on. The students that had me as their teacher in mystery school know about the journey work, and since I stopped teaching in 2008, I believe the last time I taught was April. The students after that, they haven't had me as a teacher, so they don't know about this kind of journey work. Other than recently, we've started to create these sort of workshops for the graduates of mystery school. And I just recently went back and taught a class, and we had about 50 people in it. It's open to the public in general, but most people that came, in fact, everyone that came was from mystery school graduate.
Interesting. We should do a talk on that sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Intuition. That'd be another great topic to talk about.
Yeah.
Spiritual self, the divine self, how to develop that. Go more into detail and actually do the practice.
Yes.
Not stress.
All right, that was just a fragment of the amazing conversation that I had with Mark. And Mark is currently a practitioner of Lomi Lomi massage. He does Ho'oponopono. He does, and he's also re-skilled in the martial arts, as is Ramsey. And so you can find him if you want to get in touch with him for any of his services or to discuss what else he can offer you. You can find him through. You can get a hold of Mark through hanawellness.org, and his contact information will be available at the end of this project as well. So these three amazing people, I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate and honor their time, their energy, their spirit, and their wisdom, and their willingness to come forth and contribute on the subject of Ho'oponopono. It's gone out and started to become, popularized a bit, and I think it's time that more people, especially decision makers in this world, get a hold of this way of thinking. They change their lives and the lives of people around them, especially spiritual practitioners. spiritual practitioners, medical practitioners, people who work in the field of psychology. This is taking mental philosophy or psychology to the next level and bringing it into a practical realm where we can actually start to help other people with the inner workings of ourselves. It means fixing ourselves to heal the world. And really, if all we saw around us was health and wellness, then there would be no sickness left. There would be no sadness left. Eventually, death would be fleeing from us. So that is the lesson here. It's about accountability. It's about cleaning up the world, cleaning others as you would be cleaned yourself. So thank you, Mark. All right, so with these amazing interviews done and out of the way, we need to just say thank you, and hopefully you can start setting everything in your life to Pono. And till next time, aloha.
So I'm so excited to be able to share this technology with you. The implications are broad and the applications are limitless. Whether you're trying to improve your spiritual welfare by helping another person, which often occurs while you're taking care of somebody else's condition, you can't help but examine yourself along the way. And as a result, find areas of your life that you can improve on. In fact, put your attention on, and in the process, improve yourself while you're improving the other person. And it's as broad as seeing somebody on TV and maybe taking interest in their condition and offering a treatment prayer on their behalf. There are certain considerations that you should be aware of, though. As a practitioner, you've got a patient maybe who's experiencing some sort of condition which maybe has its roots in anger or non-forgiveness, and you pray and you do the affirmation, you do the process in order to cleanse that person or that circumstance, and they get prompted by the Spirit afterward to hold a new thought pattern according to what you have requested on their behalf. And if they continuously decline it, it's just the same as undoing their own prayer, and it can become non-effective. For instance, if somebody's going through some sort of cancer, in the case of Louise Hay, if you're familiar with her case, she had a vaginal cancer, and she actually had anger towards an abuser, a sexual abuser from her childhood, and it was a result of that festering anger and resentment that the condition started to develop. And it wasn't until she began to forgive her perpetrator that the condition started to fall away. So if in this case we were wanting to help treat somebody who had a similar condition, and we were prompting basically their spirit into a mode of acceptance and forgiveness of what has occurred, like the prayer, where we talk about, God, please grant me the courage to change the things I can and know the difference between what I can and cannot change. It is when we are prompted to change and don't do it that we sabotage ourselves. And in the case of using Ho'oponopono for somebody else, if they are not willing to accept the promptings but they continuously resist, it's like a treatment whose case or disease keeps coming back because the person, after being prompted with a new thought pattern, continuously decides to cling to the old. And it is a result, as a result of that, the condition continues. So what you really need to do is know that the person wants healing, is receptive to healing, and if you don't have that sort of information, it's just as helpful to offer the services to bring them into a place where perhaps they're ready to receive the healing. They just needed the boost or the push, but the thought pattern has to match. The vibration has to match the healing. But for a lot of people, they just don't know how to get to that place, and you give them a big boost. You boost them over a huge stepping stone by using Ho'oponopono, and it can save their life. Okay. Hi. So we're here in the Philippines in Bohol, which is off the coast of what island are we on in the Philippines? Bohol is the name of the island. We're here on the island of Bohol, and we're actually on site here at the Chocolate Hills. It's a geological wonder, and I'm speaking with Inday about her treatment with Ho'oponopono and her shaman. And so I was discussing with her some of the effects that she's had as a result of the treatment. And so she actually went in for a leg condition that she had. What was the condition that you had?
Some kind of sore, like it's dripping, like it's dripping, or both legs, and it's just like disgusting. And
So your leg was dripping some sort of oil.
No, it's just like drainage.
Oh, you were having drainage occurring.
Currently, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's a sore.
And you were having pain come from that?
No, but it's just they don't have no pain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like nasty. They got like sore, but they got lots of drainage that they show in my pants and also in my shoes and all over. I mean, that was embarrassing. So I quit for 3 months because I was embarrassed. Like nobody, even my best friend, even sit beside me, or they look at you like you got disease or something.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom took me to that.
The shaman?
Shaman.
Yeah. So the shaman...
Just put something. They put some kind of herb, like they smash it and they put something in it, and then they just go all over my legs. And,
Now this was done in conjunction with the Ho'oponopono technique, which is a matter of taking on the responsibility for the patient's condition. And then what happens is that the shaman begins to cleanse themselves in order to heal you, the patient. And so he also treated you.
Yeah, he treated me, and my mom just took me to the clinic and stuff like that, and put some medicine in it, and it's not working. So,
So would you say it's more of the technology or the power of the prayer of the shaman?
I think it's just the power.
Yeah.
He said if you trusted him, I trusted him, and believe him, like, they will heal me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I believe in that, because I think I believe in miracles.
Yeah.
I believe in miracles.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have no scar after that. And it was feeling strange. They just there, they just showed up, and then all of a sudden they were just like, when I went to the guy, and then he just like put some herb, and then they just healing a little bit. I mean, such as that, the drainage is stopped. I mean,
Wow, so that's a very good point.
Yeah.
You had tried medicinal ways to heal it, and it wasn't until you received the treatment from the shaman that it actually started to cure itself. And then what did you notice?
I noticed that like completely gone, and then I don't have no scar.
Wow.
That one. And that was just like, it's a miracle.
Wow.
It was a miracle.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's treatment.
Yeah.
That's treatment. Well, and I appreciate your time out here in the Philippines, in the beautiful chocolate hills of Bohol. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? You care to share about your treatment, or you feel like that pretty much describes?
I think it's
So
it
it was
happened
pretty.
to me truly. It happened to me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. See, traditional medicine isn't always the way, but in this case, it took a little bit of mystical power in order to take it to the next level. So I'm glad you could be here as a testament.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go. I took one treatment 3 days ago. I come back here from America and I just like get a treatment for this lady, and then she's almost cured me, but I still hurt right here. And she told me that my nerve or what did she say? That is just like crumpling here on my legs. That's why I got pain in this one here. And then she's helping me, and she said that my glucose is down, and then she's putting it up, or
Wow.
fixing that. I need to have one more treatment and one kind of a what kind of a like steam thing, like she's pick up some like branch or tree something, like and I said you better write that down so I can
Yeah.
I can find that somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's coming tonight or something.
Cool.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can spend some time with her
Just
and find
inform
out
her.
more about that technology. But great. Well, thanks for talking to us about your experiences with Ho'oponopono, and hopefully we'll be talking later.
Yeah.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right.